In the earlier chapters, I shared with you a significant part of my life. My name is William Maitland, once known as the Iceman, in the state attorney's office for Northeast Florida, where I built my career with unrelenting focus, maybe too much focus. Many years ago, my wife, Debbie, said just 4 words. Those words cracked open everything. My marriage of over 2 decades, the family I thought was solid, all started to crumble. I didn't see it coming, but maybe I should have. My career consumed me, leaving my marriage to disintegrate. And before I knew it, Debbie was gone. Our divorce finalized, and my personal life shattered. In the years that followed, I lost not just Debbie, but any semblance of stability. I got involved with Aline Desjardins, the wife of a friend, while my professional world was collapsing too. I was being closely monitored, doubted by federal agencies about whether I was truly on the right side of the law, and to top it off, I earned the international nickname, the Angel of Death. At the time, I didn't even realize how that title would haunt me, following me like a shadow. Then came a period where betrayal was just part of the job. My life fell apart even more when I betrayed a friend. It didn't seem like such a big deal until I lost everything for nothing. I threw myself into work, where an epic battle was brewing, an international cartel war that could have ruined me. Divorce left me lonely, bitter, and detached from everyone I once cared about. In less than a year, I went from being the Iceman, with a stable home and family, to losing not 1, but 3 of the most beautiful women I'd been involved with. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I found myself in a dangerous situation. International forces, ruthless drug cartels, and even my own legal peers were working against me. They targeted my family, threatening everyone close to me, and even my own son wasn't safe from their reach. With all this going on, I almost lost my faith in the justice system itself. Now, after years of chaos, I stand here, wondering what's next. My title, the Angel of Death, hangs over me. But maybe it's time to stop running from it and face whatever comes next head on. So, let's continue with the next chapter of my life. Buckle up. It's going to get even more twisted from here. A troubled night. Wednesday, November 16th, 2005, 3 a.m. I find myself lost in a thick fog. I can't remember how I got here, or even where here is. All I feel is the cold fog wrapping around me like a giant web. I try to push through, but it's getting harder. My hands feel small and weak like a child's as I grasp at the gray mist surrounding me. I am alone and scared. I am 8 years old. I hear my father's voice calling out in the fog. "Billy, Billy, where are you, son? I need you. Hurry, help me." The fog begins to lift. I'm running down the road that leads to the coal mine, where trucks loaded with rocks wait in the distance. I'm racing toward the wide mine entrance, but it feels like the distance doesn't shorten. I spot him at the entrance. He's a big man with long black hair flowing like a warrior. I know he never wore his hair like that before, but it looks real now. The ground shakes, and dust spills from behind him. "Billy, please hurry. I need you. I'm falling." "I'm coming, Daddy," I shout. But with each step he sinks deeper, his face disappearing in the thick dust. I can only see his eyes shining faintly. "Billy, you didn't help me, son. Why not?" "Daddy, I'm only 8. I couldn't." A voice from the dark whispers, "If you had cared, you would have come for me, Billy." He's gone, and I stand at the edge of a growing pit. The mine is lost now, replaced by this pit where cries echo. My mother is beside me. She's young and beautiful, her hair a golden color. Tears stream down her face as she looks into the pit. "Why didn't you help him, Billy? He was your father. He would have done anything for you." "I tried, Mama, I tried." I reach out to her, hoping for comfort, but she turns away without a word and walks off. She doesn't look back. In the dreamlike haze, it feels normal that I'm driving along Highway 20 from Gainesville to Palatka. It's the morning after a moment that broke my heart, and instead of facing it, I slammed my fist against the walls of my room. I never found the courage to show how I felt. So she ended up in another man's arms, giving him the attention I had always wanted. It had been a bright and sunny morning, I still remember, But now it's dark and cloudy, and the rain begins to tap against my windshield. I finally arrive home, pulling into the driveway of the small house that has been my safe place for the past 10 years, since my father passed away, the father I could not save. I walk through the chilly rain and knock on the door. I knock again. After a long wait, soaked from head to toe, I am ready to leave when the door finally opens. She stands there smaller now, only 5'4", though she once seemed much taller. Her hair is still blonde but cut short now, unlike the long, flowing hair my father loved. "Mom, I'm soaked. Let me in." She stands in the doorway, her face not showing any warmth. "You let your father die." "Mom, no. I took care of you for so long, even after that. I fed you, clothed you, and gave you a home, but you let your father down. And what do you do with the life I gave you? You waste it on someone who doesn't care for you. You never should have survived that night. It would have been better for everyone. I hoped for you, but not like this." "You don't mean that, Mom. I love Debbie." "You don't understand what love is, Billy." She closed the door softly in my face. Once again, I am in a darkened room, filled with memories of a time that changed everything. I'm in a hospital bed, silent, with machines buzzing softly around me. Debbie stands nearby, speaking in a low tone that I can't hear. "Some hero you are. I asked you for help, and now look at where we are." I feel stuck in that fog again, wanting to stay wrapped in its cool, soft embrace, wishing to block out everything else. But something, maybe a higher power, won't let me hide from the voices and faces emerging from the mist. Lily Mae Longstreet steps from the fog toward me. She smiles, though there's a hint of sadness in her eyes. Despite everything, she finds a way to smile weakly. "How's it going, Mr. Maitland? Have you put away any more wrongdoers since you convicted the man who took my life and left my boys without a mother? Oh, I forgot. You let my killer go free. I guess I wasn't as important as your big cases." She starts to fade away. I could say I did my best and that she inspired me to try harder, but it wouldn't matter. She would still be gone and her family would continue to grieve. I know I'm dreaming now, but I can't wake up. Debbie lies across our bed. She looks beautiful with the light highlighting her features, but when she looks up, she's not looking at me. Instead, she glances over her shoulder at a tall man entering the room. For a moment, I think it might be someone from her past, but as I focus, I see it is Doug Baker standing there, confident and relaxed. I want to speak, but the words are stuck in my throat. She looks at me and laughs as he walks closer to her. "Don't look so sad, Bill," she says, her voice sharp with sarcasm. "You had to know I was tired of our life. You knew where I was all those nights I told you I had plans. You knew, but you didn't do anything. You felt scared. You knew I was going to leave." Doug stood there, showing confidence that made me feel small. "You are such a little man, Bill, in every way." I looked away because I had no reply. Then I noticed Paula Donnelly, who had helped me see things more clearly. She wore a dark blouse and jeans that showed her shape. "When are you going to come to me, Bill? You know you want to. You know you need me." The way she looked at me stirred strong feelings inside, just like that time at Carrabba's. Her words felt sharp, and I should have felt the burden of them. "You are such a loser, Bill. You let your father die. Your mother was left to deal with you. Women never wanted you, not until someone better came along. Debbie made a mistake thinking you were right for her. She finally realized it and left. Your kids turned away from you, too. Aline thought about loving you, but she went back to Philippe. You knew it would happen. No matter what they say, women will always leave. You never had a chance against Philippe. You never did. It's funny to think you believed you had a chance with Myra. Of all the women you thought she might care for you, soon she will be with someone else, laughing at the little man who thought she had feelings for him. Even in dreams, I could feel the darkness in her and an attraction to it. You remember, Bill. I'm the bad girl. I am everything you stand against. You were right. I am going to win Paul's trust again, and then I'll make sure he faces the truth. I'll succeed because someone else will take the blame. You understood my heart and you dislike me for it. But I will go through with my plan. And when the time comes, you will come to me. Now she stood before me, reminding me of that moment in Carrabba's that I couldn't shake off. There was a tension in the air, like a storm building inside me. I felt in you back then what Aline felt on the Bon Chance, even if she didn't see it. There's some anger and darkness inside you that has been growing for a long time. With every loss and unfairness you've faced, it's gotten bigger. You've kept it inside and tried to turn it into a quest for justice, a quest for your father's approval. But he wouldn't understand or approve. He was a good, simple man, and you're not really like that deep down. She was close enough for me to feel the tension, and I wanted to reach out and hold her. It was a different kind of wanting, but wanting is wanting. There's a fire inside you, Bill. It was burning when Debbie said those 4 words. Only a lawyer at the edge of losing control would react the way you did to a friend of his wife in public, putting everything at risk. A man who was barely managing his life would confront his ex-wife in a public courtroom after their divorce. You have made some bad choices, but you can't change, can you? She steps away and begins to disappear into a thick mist. You won't seek me out, Bill, but I'm the only one who will ever really understand you, care for you, and want to hold you the way you need to be held. Inside, we are alike, a troubled person and a good man, but we're the same. Suddenly, I am lost in a mist where there is no way to go, no forward, no backward, no up, no down. It feels like I have been here forever, but thankfully nightmares do not last forever. Even as I struggle to move forward, I find my eyes opening and my body rising in bed at my condo. I swing my feet over the side, tangled in a sheet, and I notice something I've started keeping nearby. It's cold, but I am sweating. I left the air off, and the November chill has filled the room. I'm not sure why I'm sweating, but as bits of the nightmare return to my mind, I start to understand. I've had nightmares before, but this one felt different. This nightmare pulls at my heart, lingering in my mind like a dull pain. Most nightmares can be easily forgotten, but this one felt too real. It was twisted by fears that come out when I am vulnerable, yet it was based in reality. I take a deep breath and feel the solid object in my hand. There are nightmares that come from our minds, and then there are those created by real people who act without care for others and plan harm with cold intent. I realize that the nightmare holding me captive started earlier when I saw Wilbur Bell's lifeless body in a morgue. I had tried to protect him from William Sutton and his mother's plans, but it hadn't been enough. Deep down, I know that I will not forgive myself for not saving him, for not saving my father, for not holding on to my ex-wife's love, for losing my children, for losing Aline, for not stopping Lily Mae Longstreet's wrong actions. Standing by the window of my condo, I start to regain my sense of reason. I cannot blame myself for all those things. It doesn't help, but it's easy for those thoughts to sneak in when I'm not alert. I step around the bed, into the hall, and into the kitchen. I open the fridge, and the light brightens the empty room behind me. I look at my wristwatch, 3 a.m. the witching hour. I take out a half-gallon jug of ice water and lift it up to drink with my left hand. It's a sign that I am settling into a bachelor's way of living. I realize I'm still holding something that makes me feel safe. I close the fridge and walk across the cool tile to the front door to make sure it's locked. I check the chain lock I put in place too. There's still a bit of worry inside me, but I know it comes from nightmares, not from anything being wrong with the condo. I get back into bed and place the item I held on the end table so it's easy to reach. I pull the covers up and rest my head on the pillow. As I look outside, the streetlight brightens the raindrops sliding down the glass, and I listen to the calming sound of rain tapping on the window and roof. You feel the most alone when you lie in bed at night listening to the rain without someone warm beside you. The strong urge to grab my phone and call Debbie almost gets me, but I stop myself. Little reminders sneak in, showing me that no matter how hard I try, she is still an important part of my life. I lay my head back on the pillow, leaving the bits of the dream behind. I stared at the dark ceiling. My mind wandered back through the years, and I tried to calm my breathing and heartbeat. No matter what Paula Donnelly had said to me, I had a good life in all the ways that mattered. Mark Cumber, my old roommate with the white dreadlocks, who had planned to join his father's banking business in Atlanta, had sadly passed away too soon. He didn't live long enough to graduate or share his accomplishment with his father in 1986. A moment of carelessness on the interstate while he was heading home took him from us. They buried him in a closed casket while his family mourned deeply. I talked to friends who kept in touch with his family, and they said his father was never the same afterward. 3 years later, his car crashed into a tree on a quiet road in rural Georgia. They called it an accident, which allowed his wife and daughters to collect a life insurance policy. But everyone who knew him understood the truth beneath it all. Some pains are too deep, and healing is not always possible. Mark never got married or had children. He was a smart, funny, and kind person, and it felt like he had disappeared from the world. Over the years, I thought of him often. Whenever I felt life was too hard on me, his memory helped me remember what mattered. I was lying alone in a small room, far from anyone I cared about. Debbie, Aileen, BJ, Kelly, and Myra. Even my mother was a long way away. But I was here, and Mark wasn't. To the sound of the tapping rain, I fell asleep. Wednesday, November 16th, 2005, 3 a.m. It was the sound of rain that woke her. The thermostat had just turned on to warm the house back to the low 70s, but there was still a chill in the air. It was an unusually cold November night. As Debbie made her way to the first floor and opened the door, she stepped out into the night, lit only by the nearest streetlight. She checked the temperature on the gauge by the door. It read 41 degrees. When she turned 17, she had moved in with her uncle in Michigan. Her parents were concerned about her future. While there, she shared rooms with her teenage cousins, who helped keep her safe from trouble. In Michigan, people understood cold. They would laugh and play outside in short sleeves when the winter temperature rose above 40 degrees. So 41 degrees in Jacksonville should not have felt so important, but it did. It felt colder than the 20s she remembered from Michigan. As she locked the front door and secured an additional lock she hoped she would never need, she pushed away the uneasy feeling that someone might be watching her. The wet, gusty darkness outside was empty, lit only by the flickering streetlight. Still, the feeling lingered. Her past made her cautious, as if she were living in a suspenseful story. She headed up to the second floor and quietly peeked into BJ's bedroom. He lay under a blanket, snoring softly, with the television still on. She turned it off and gently ran her fingers through his hair before leaving the room. It felt like a long time since she had done that when he was a little boy. Just looking at him made her think about how one day he might not be there, just like Kelly. The thought made the house feel so quiet. She climbed under the covers and opened the nightstand drawer. She picked up the Glock resting inside and held it tightly. Something about this night made her uneasy, especially knowing what had happened to an important witness in Bill's case. She eventually placed the Glock back in the drawer, feeling safer knowing it was nearby but not too close. Accidents could happen too easily that way. Lying back, she listened to the rain tapping lightly at first, but then beating hard against the windows as the wind picked up. The bed felt so large and empty. Wednesday, November 16th, 2005, 3 a.m. For a moment, she thought she heard someone else screaming before realizing the sounds were coming from her own mouth. Her throat was sore, and she wasn't sure how long she had been making those sounds. She had gotten tangled in her sheets and almost fell to the floor before catching herself. The units were well insulated, but she was not surprised when she heard banging on the front door along with calls of, Miss Martinez, are you all right?" She got out of bed and put on a long nightgown before opening the door. Brent Day, the condo security guard, was standing outside. "I'm sorry, but I thought I heard you in trouble. Are you okay?" he asked, looking a bit worried. He studied her but stayed professional. He was a good married guard who had always acted properly since he became her neighbor 2 years ago. She didn't want to explain to new officers that she was fine. "I'm okay, Officer Day. I'm sorry if I disturbed you. How is Mrs. Day?" "Just a little scared. What happened?" It sounded serious. "I just had a really bad nightmare. Luckily, I don't have them very often." He looked around and said, "Are you absolutely sure you're all right? I can come in and check things out. You can stay with Juanita while I look around." She touched his arm gently and replied, "I'm sure. I will have some coffee and take something to help me sleep. Please go back to your wife. I promise you won't hear me again. If anyone else called for help, could you please let them know everything's fine?" He nodded and left, and she locked the door again. In the kitchen, she poured herself a cup of coffee and warmed it in the microwave. Then, reaching for a bottle of pills, she took out 2 extra-strength pain relievers. Her head hurt, and the ache spread down to her shoulders. She moved her neck side to side, feeling the tension. She wore a supportive bra that helped with the weight, and she kept it on unless she was alone. But even then, it felt heavy. Doctors had told her she should think about getting a reduction before she turned 40, or she might face serious issues with her neck and back due to the strain. She knew that time was coming, but not just yet. There were things she needed to accomplish, and she couldn't do those without her appearance. Pouring a glass of white wine, she settled down by the big picture window, looking out at the rain. She picked up a small, unloaded gun and gazed into the darkness. "You can come out now," she said, observing the reflections in the glass. Slowly, shapes began to form and step away from the surface, their outlines faint. She smiled at them and removed the magazine from the gun. Holding it up, she aimed at an older figure in front and pretended to pull the trigger. "You can't frighten me unless I'm asleep," she whispered, imagining that each click could erase the shadows before her. They looked back with empty eyes, reminding her of nights when they had scared her. But as she got older, that fear had faded. The only thing she truly regretted as she made her choice was that she could not face them again. That was the sad part about memories. You could only confront them once, but the good part was that you could remember them over and over. Wednesday, November 16th, 2005, 3 a.m. Tangerine. Satsuma County Deacon turned to his side, feeling the warmth of Mary against him. He was surprised at how quickly he was ready to connect again after their earlier moment together. But there was something soft about her that he found charming. He leaned in, lightly touching his lips to her neck. That always made her pay attention. She turned towards him and he smiled in the dim light, gently touching her shoulder. "Please, Deacon. I'm really tired. I need some rest." He drew back a bit and propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her in the faint light. "All right, I understand. We can rest," he replied, deciding to take it slow this time. "You don't want me to do anything foolish. The door isn't locked. Get dressed and go." She laid her head against his chest and smiled softly. "Don't say that, Deacon. You know I care about you. I don't want this to end. Just give me some time to show you how much you matter to me." Part of him thought about sending her away. A small-town girl who had enjoyed life now wanted him to wait. He could easily find someone else. There were always other options. He took her by the shoulders and looked into her eyes. He knew he could find another person. What would be hard to replace was the genuine joy that brightened her face when he entered her salon, the excitement she showed like a child when he surprised her with little gifts. He pulled her close and kissed the top of her head. "Get some sleep, but I can't promise I'll be in the mood tomorrow." "Oh, you will be, I'm sure," she chuckled softly. Moments later, she was asleep. He lay awake for a long time, thinking about the future. He knew he had to start pulling back from Mary and think about finding another companion. It could hurt her, but he believed it was the right thing to do. Blood was unpredictable. Everyone knew that. But you could handle his unpredictability as long as he trusted you. His loyalty was important. He remembered a big barbecue at one of Blood's properties, enough space for those attending to relax without a worry. Bobby Watson had come with his wife, Evie. She was well-liked, but everyone noticed her past encounters with Blood. On that day, Blood approached them, and the mood shifted. An uneasy feeling filled the air. Bobby looked anxious as Blood suggested they step aside for a conversation. Bobby hesitated, a sense of alarm creeping in. Evie stepped in to calm things down. "Bobby, let's just talk about this. It's fine." "No, it's not, Bobby. I'm starting to worry about you. Maybe you should go home." "I'm going to take your wife back to the cabin and show her some care. When I'm done, everyone will have something to remember." "No." Blood just stared at him. "Are you really sure I can't have her?" Deacon felt like the silence lasted a while, but it was just a few seconds before Blood quickly took action and made Evie unable to move. While she lay still, Blood turned and struck Bobby's arm, slowing him down. Then, he moved toward Bobby's legs. Deputies had Bobby up and took away his gear before he could react. A heavy silence fell over the area. The only sound was the crackling fire. "You should have let us handle it. It could have been managed better." Blood turned away from Bobby and moved towards Evie. Deacon didn't want to watch, but he couldn't look away. He felt sick at what Blood was doing. It was hard to stay calm as Blood made his intentions clear. "Well, she was quite a woman, and they say to use what you have." People around them started to step back. and Deacon heard someone getting sick in the darkness. He kept his eyes open, trying to maintain his composure as Blood treated Evie like she was just an object. As the night went on, Deacon felt both disgusted and aware that Evie was no longer available to Blood. This was a lesson for all who were watching. Deacon knew Bobby wouldn't find it easy to cope after this. As he remembered that night and Evie, who meant so much to him, Deacon vowed he would do anything to keep Mary safe, even if it meant he might never see her again or helping her find a better job far away from Satsuma. Wednesday, November 16th, 2005, 3 a.m. The alarm buzzed softly, not loud enough to disturb anyone outside his condo. For a moment he thought about turning it off and going back to his cozy bed. He had spent a long day at the courthouse and St. Vincent's after the Bell case. Though he had gotten a few hours of sleep, it didn't feel like enough, but he knew he couldn't ignore it. There was too much at stake, and mistakes were not acceptable. His job was important, and these people didn't tolerate missed work. He got out of bed and went to the refrigerator in the small kitchen, grabbing a drink before heading to his desk. After a sip, he turned on the computer, watching it light up. His screen filled with scrambled letters and numbers. If a set of computer instructions, which changed every other day, hadn't been used after he filed the report the night before, he could have read simple notes about the subject's previous week. These notes included ideas about who might have been behind Bell's death and mentions of the sheriff's team possibly being involved. There was also a short note about the subject and Miss Martinez ending their relationship. Though the subject's personal life didn't seem important to those who paid him, their orders were to report on everything connected to him. Sending the information took only a second with a tap of his finger. He leaned back and enjoyed more of his drink. Even though he couldn't understand it all, he knew the mixed-up message was being sent through many stations, making it hard to trace back to where it started. He finished the drink, tossed the can in the kitchen trash, and shut down the computer. Just as he was about to turn off the lights and head back to bed, resetting the alarm for 6 a.m., he switched off the lights and walked to the window on the third floor that faced northeast. The rain might have slowed while he slept, but another storm was now pouring outside, hitting the glass with heavy drops. He reached out and placed his hand against the window. The coldness seeped into his skin, surprising him as it always did this time of year. This was Florida, northern Florida, the supposedly sunny place full of orange trees. He had spent time on the southern beaches, so he knew that part of Florida was real. But Jacksonville felt different. As he listened to the steady sound of the rain, he thought about mornings spent on the beaches of Costa Rica, where it was always comfortably warm, and the rain felt soft and soothing. He lay back in bed, still listening to the rain, drifting into a daydream of walking barefoot on the sandy shore of a Costa Rican beach in the gentle morning rain. Call Me Ishmael. Wednesday, November 16th, 2005, 9:30 a.m. This morning I woke up feeling more tired than when I went to sleep. Still, I made time to go to Hurley's gym for an hour before heading to the office. I had been exercising for long enough to know that the more I pushed myself on the treadmill and did sit-ups, the better I felt afterwards. In fact, I felt better leaving the gym than when I arrived. Before Debbie encouraged me to take care of myself, I never really believed that it could make a difference. I believed I had sweated out some of the anger and disappointment that had lingered with me since Bell's passing the night before. As I entered the building and walked past the security desk to the elevators, I stopped by the busy Starbucks and grabbed a cappuccino before heading up. I pressed the button for the 4th floor, but changed my mind and pressed the 3rd floor button, preparing myself for the slight jolt as the elevator stopped. Stepping out, I noticed a girl at the reception desk I didn't recognize. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Is Miss Bascom in? Can I tell her who is here?" "Don't bother," Debbie said as she approached. "I know Mr. Maitland. What can I do for you this early, Mr. Maitland? Could we talk for a minute? About work or something personal?" "Sort of." "Mysterious. I thought we were past this." She smiled. "We are. I just wanted to enjoy being on the other side for once. When do you ever come to me to talk unless it's work?" I checked my watch and said, "Actually, I have a busy day ahead. If you're having too much fun teasing me, we can save this for another time." She shook her head and turned away, saying, "Don't be so sensitive, Bill. I actually have something I wanted to discuss with you." If I had been a bit more imaginative, I might have thought she was extra happy today. But that was just how Debbie was. She sat down behind her desk. I stood in front of her. "Do you want to sit?" "No, I won't be long. I just wanted to ask if you'd be free this afternoon or evening." She gave me a puzzled look. After being married for 20 years, I should have been able to read her thoughts, but I couldn't. Free? For what? To have coffee with me. Somewhere. Maybe a Waffle House or a quieter place like Shoney's. "You're asking me out?" I know it sounds exaggerated, but her mouth fell open in surprise. "No, not a date. I just want to talk to you away from here in the house. I don't feel comfortable there." She looked down at her desk, and I could tell she was a bit uncomfortable. "I don't know if that's a good idea, Bill. If it's about the kids, we can talk here or on the phone. But meeting up, I'm not trying to convince you or anything like that. I just want to talk. It's not personal or about the kids. I'll explain when we meet." She studied me closely. "You're being very secretive, Bill. That's not like you. I can't help but feel a bit cautious. You haven't wanted to talk to me for most of the year, and now you want to meet, but you won't say why." I looked at her, feeling a bit annoyed. "Being distant is new for you, Deb. I know the rumors spread fast. You know we broke up." "I'm sorry, this year has been tough for me too. I'm not as kind as I used to be, especially after what you said." I took a step back towards her office door. "I really don't want to do this, Deb. I don't want to go over old issues again. I thought we were past that. Let's not meet. It wasn't that important anyway." She stood up from behind her desk. "No, Bill, I shouldn't have said that. It felt like old memories were coming back, but it's okay. I can leave my son home alone tonight. What time and where should we meet?" "I'll probably be busy until 6 or 7. How about 7:30? And where?" "How about that bar, The Last Call? It's on Beach, close to my place." "A bar? I told you this isn't a date. Why that bar?" "It's usually quiet on weekdays. They serve coffee, too. We can talk without being overheard. The owner is private." "How do you know they serve coffee and are not busy? And what do you know about the owner?" "I haven't been stuck at home. I've been out these last 8 months. I've been there and met Armando. He seems nice." "I'm not sure about being a fan, but he is a nice guy." I stopped myself from saying more. Bringing up the past didn't help. "Okay, we'll meet at 7:30 unless I call." "Sounds good." "By the way, you mentioned you had something to tell me?" "We'll discuss it tonight." "Who's being mysterious now?" "It's not a mystery, Bill. I just think you should know. Maybe you can help, but I'll explain tonight." As I reached the door, she added, "This feels odd, doesn't it?" I left without answering. She was right. This could be a mistake, but sometimes you have to trust your instincts. I could have taken the elevator, but I chose to walk up the last flight of stairs. After a good workout, the stairs felt nice. I waved to Cheryl and walked in to see my desk starting to fill with memos and sticky notes about several missed calls. As I expected, 2 were from Macon's office, likely about pushing Sutton's trial to happen as soon as possible. There was one from Judge Pizarro's office that I would return. The rest were about upcoming trials and hearings, most of which I didn't need to handle. The section heads and other attorneys would take care of them. The memos I received were just general updates on what was happening. I took a deep breath, letting the day's routine settle in. Dallas had gone to Tampa, but he was often absent, so this was how the office usually ran. Important matters would eventually come to me, but I tried to pass as much as I could to department heads or other lawyers. I wanted the experienced staff, some of whom were older than me, to handle most issues with little supervision. They were capable and usually brought the tricky or sensitive topics to me, often to protect their own reputations. It didn't take long to read most of the notes. I planned to put off the memos from Macon's office as long as I could, and when I had to face him, I would give him a taste of his own medicine for how he treated William Sutton. I called Mitch McConnell and he answered promptly. "Mitch, can you stop by for a moment?" "Sure," he said, arriving just 3 minutes later. "I want to say I'm sorry." "Can you say that again?" "With everything that happened yesterday, I didn't get the chance to say how sorry I was." "I'm still confused. That your personal life seems a bit tough right now. I thought about sending flowers like for a sad occasion, but I didn't want to make it worse." I sighed. "Is there anything in this courthouse that everyone doesn't know within an hour?" "No. You've been quite the topic of discussion since you returned, and that gave everyone hope that anything is possible. Sorry to burst bubbles, but can you focus on the important details and perhaps do some investigating? Of course, Mr. Maitland. What do you need? I'll call Knight and see if he can send one of his detectives to assist you for a few days. I hope he can. I want you both to look into Wilbur Bell's case. We already know how Sutton and his mother were involved, and it seems they didn't leave any loose ends. But I need you to revisit the scene. Talk to the couple that staged the fight, the courier, or anyone who might have talked to Mama Sutton the day of Bell's incident. Don't let her steer the conversation elsewhere. If needed, bring her in as a potential witness. You don't have to charge her with anything, just let her know we think she might have helpful information. Keep her there as long as you can legally. Hopefully that will really pressure Junior. If he stays calm, bring him to the station. Macon will complain about doing the interview in his office, but let him know you need to bring Sutton into the station. He will try to call me, but I won't be available. Then, he will contact Dallas, who will say he can't help because he is out of town. Macon will then reach out to Judge Pizarro, but Pizarro won't get involved. If I know Pizarro, he'll likely tell Macon to ask if he gets proof of any wrongdoing, but otherwise to work it out with me. He smiled. You'll be unavailable. I smiled back. You're starting to understand. Now, in a few hours, or by the end of the day, I'll let Sutton and his mother go free if you're still keeping them busy. But Sutton tends to get angry, and he might have family issues. Having to come to the station and seeing his mother brought in could really upset him. He might say or do something we can use. There's also a chance they made a mistake in their plan. If I can't hold Sutton responsible for what happened to his wife and son, it would be nice if I could take action against him and his mother for their part in Bell's case. McConnell leaned back and rubbed his chin as he watched me. I almost feel bad for him. Did you ever read Moby Dick in school? It was kind of like a punishment for something I did. You're like Captain Ahab. You're set on bringing him in no matter what. Right book, wrong character. Call me Ishmael. He just smiled. I'm looking forward to this, Mr. Maitland. And I must say, losing the sweetheart of the courthouse seems to have made you even more determined. I liked it. I'm still the same person I always was. If you manage to catch those people, you'll become my favorite investigator. As he stood up, he said, I always thought I was. What have you done for me lately? Next, I called Carlisle. He answered on the second ring, which was good. Everyone was getting to the office on time or early. I needed to stay busy for the next few weeks. He said he'd be down in 10 minutes. Then I called Cheryl. Hi, what's happening in the office? Anything I should know? Dave Brandon's wife still isn't speaking to him. Evelyn Sweet has started dating that appealing new assistant PD. Rumor has it this one might be serious. There is a rumor that Governor Bush might be considering Johnny August for the state attorney general job if Charlie Crist resigns early to run for governor next year or takes a position with a law firm in Miami. Johnny for attorney general? He was a state attorney in Orlando before moving here. Also, everyone likes him. That's true, but it wouldn't be the same without him. I agree. That's all I have for now, but I'll keep listening. While I waited for Carlisle, I thought about the Johnny August rumor. It seemed hard to believe, and for personal reasons, I hoped it wasn't true. August was not someone who easily changed his mind, but I enjoyed our talk simply because I liked him. This is why he always won re-election, and unless someone found serious issues with him, he would probably keep getting elected for years. People really admired him. He also treated Debbie well, giving her a chance after she lost her job at UNF. I would never tell her, but I was happy she found work at the courthouse. Mr. Maitland. I waved to Carlisle and he took a seat across from me. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes, and he seemed restless. He didn't seem that happy. Is everything okay? Everything's fine. Better than fine. Is this about Sutton? His words were polite, but his tone wasn't friendly. I just looked at him. Sorry, I shouldn't have spoken like that, Mr. Maitland. I apologize. I plan to talk to you about Sutton. Do you have any personal matters to handle? We can meet later. No, now is good. I'm sorry again. I don't usually bring personal issues to work, so can we forget about that and discuss Sutton? Of course. You said you spoke with the chief of police in Spring City about Sutton. What's his name? Gordon Evers. Yes, I spoke with him about our work, and he mentioned that they were looking into the death of one of his officers, Lee Henry, in a suspicious fire back in February. So far, they had not found any leads. But what? When I told him who I was, he asked if we were looking into a link between Lee Henry's death and Sutton. Why? As far as I know, there are no clear ties between them, and the media hasn't covered any connection. It would seem odd to think that without any proof. Evers said he had never thought about a connection, and he didn't even know about the incident involving Sutton's family. It was outside his area, and the case hadn't received much attention outside Jacksonville. However, he mentioned that a reporter named Harry Bass had pointed out Sutton and noted that Lee Henry was killed just days after Mrs. Sutton. Bass suggested that if you looked at a map, Spring City was right in the way from Ocala, where Sutton lived, to Jacksonville. I knew who Bass was. Anyone who had lived and worked in Jacksonville for a long time and read the newspaper knew his name. Bass had been the main police reporter before Carl Cameron took over. While Bass wasn't as skilled a writer as Cameron, he was still a great reporter. He had uncovered some important stories on his own, which sometimes upset the higher-ups in the police, but the regular officers respected him. He was now covering police reports and court stories, along with other tasks assigned to him. He probably would never become a big name in local journalism. Despite his experience, personal issues had affected his work. Everyone called him the love bug, a nickname he had earned. This was the main reason he had not moved up in the news industry. People struggled to take him seriously, even with his real accomplishments. What was Bass doing in Spring City talking to Chief Evers? The TU wouldn't care about a case so far away. He wasn't there for work. He and Evers have been friends for a long time, going back to when Evers was a detective in Jacksonville. They meet up often. They both enjoy discussing crime. Evers was a detective for about 10 years. He mentioned that he and Bass were talking after we filed charges, and that's when Bass got the idea. I stood up and walked to the window, opening the blinds. The storm had gone, and sunlight filled the room. It felt warm, likely in the low 70s after a chilly night of rain. One day would be cold, and the next would feel pleasant. This was the charm of Jacksonville. I felt better looking out at the warm sun. Maybe it was a sign. Of course, it might lead to nothing. But I remembered the green light murder case that he and a TU editor had solved alone, which had caught the attention of a few national magazines. Then there was the blue nude murder, another case where Bass stepped outside his usual work, yet he solved a case that I believed would someday make a great film. They would probably choose a charming actor to portray Bass, but it was his story. Knowing that Bass had connected Sutton with Spring City pushed me to link the two cases and possibly turn my sure loser into a winner. What's his number? Evers? I had Cheryl find the number, and she told me when she reached him. Chief Evers, this is Bill Maitland from the State Attorney's Office in Jacksonville. I believe my ASA Gordon Carlisle spoke with you about our investigation into the Sutton murder case. His voice was rough but gentle, like someone recovering from a cold. Mr. Maitland, yes, your colleague was down here, and honestly, it was refreshing to get a new perspective on the case of our murdered officer. The person responsible went to great lengths to hide what he did and made it look like a burglary gone wrong. But I never doubted it was planned. Whoever did this is a dangerous person. Lee Henry was a trained police officer and veteran of Iraq, and he had a large dog with him, which also passed away. If it's who we think it is, he is indeed a dangerous person. He's also very smart. We worked on this case from every angle for almost a year and found things about Lee that surprised us, but we hit a dead end and had no new leads until we received your call. I leaned back and signaled to Carlisle. If this went well, he would be very pleased in his new role as head of the section. That's good news, Chief. Now we need to share our findings. It sounds like you've done a lot of groundwork, but it's important that we meet in person and have a proper discussion. My schedule is usually packed, so getting away is tough for me. It seems you might have fewer obligations, and I wonder if you could come here. We'll arrange a place for you to stay and treat you to some nice meals. Benny's has some of the best steaks in the state. There was a pause. I understand, Maitland, but my city is not as calm as you might think, and we only have 3 people in our department, including me. If I come up, we'll be very short-staffed. I'm sorry, Chief, and I will do everything I can to work with you, but I'm very eager to catch this person. I dream about him at night. From what you've said, I believe you feel just as strongly about bringing your criminal to justice. I think we might really be looking for the same person. If you can come here, we can meet in the morning and wrap things up so you can be home by evening." Another long pause. Finally, he said, "How about this Friday?" "That works. Can you also reach out to Bass? I'd like him to join us if possible. He'll be excited about that, Maitland. But he will want to be the first to report on it." "I can handle him. I've worked with him before." "All right. I'll call you Friday morning while I'm driving up. You could come up Thursday night and stay at a hotel. My office will cover the cost." "No, thank you. I'll come up Friday morning." I sat there staring at the phone for a minute after he hung up. Carlisle and I exchanged glances. "There's a man who really does not want to come to the city. He seems to have no interest in Jacksonville. I wonder why." Carlisle shrugged. "He was a homicide detective for 10 years, I think. It's always been one of the toughest cities in the state. He probably witnessed a lot during his time there. He got exhausted and moved down to lead a small department where the worst they deal with is petty theft. For him, it's likely felt like a paid break, with great fishing, too. Can you blame him for not wanting to come back?" "No, I suppose not. But anyway, you've done an excellent job with this task. I just wanted to let you know." "Thank you, Mr. Maitland. And I apologize again. I try not to bring my personal issues to work. Is there anything you'd like to discuss? I'm not an expert on relationships, but I was married for a long time." "Is it that clear?" When a guy who is usually serious acts the way you are, it usually means something is going on. "It's just a disagreement. Everyone has them. This one was just really tough. Making up after arguments can often make a relationship stronger." He looked at his desk, not meeting my eyes. "I don't know. We've had our share of disagreements. That's normal. But this one..." Suddenly, he stood up and started to walk around. "She's a great person. We've been happy together for almost a year. I was going to ask her to marry me if I get this job. But there's this guy. She teaches at Lee High School, and he is an assistant principal. He makes me uncomfortable the way he hangs around her at any work event we go to. We were at an event last Friday night. As usual, he was close to her, trying to get her to dance every time I looked away. What really bothered me was when I stepped outside to chat with some friends. I remembered my own choices in college, but after joining the state attorney's office, I knew I had to be careful. I noticed that younger attorneys seemed to indulge in it, as long as they kept things quiet and didn't create trouble. I decided not to confront them about it. When I returned, I saw him in a corner with her, too close for comfort. I lost my temper, confronted him, and pushed him aside. She got upset with me, saying I was overreacting and that he meant no harm, that she could handle it. I said some things I shouldn't have. I even told her that if she wanted to be with him, she could go and come back later for her things. She responded strongly, saying she'd rather be with anyone else but me. So I left and didn't see her for the rest of the weekend. She came back on Sunday afternoon with 2 friends I trust. They assured me she had been with them and their partners the entire time after I left. When we sat down to talk, I tried to explain my feelings about seeing him with her, but she wouldn't listen, saying it was just harmless flirting and that my reaction embarrassed her. I'll admit, it was hard to stay calm. She's an adult at 25. There's no way she could miss his interest. But I was seen as the villain. She never really understood why I was so upset, or at least she said she didn't. I find it hard to believe she could be that unaware. Since then, things have been tense, and I haven't slept well. I could see the frustration on his face as he remembered what happened over the weekend. Every relationship is different, but I recognized his feelings. I told him that. He looked at me in disbelief. Everyone believes their story is special. You know what my wife, my ex, looks like, and she was even more beautiful 20 years ago. Other guys were always drawn to her. After some time, it pushed us apart. We were separated for 6 months. But I discovered something that helped us stay married for a long time. When you marry someone good-looking, you have to accept that kind of attention. Unless you want to keep her away from everyone else, you can't stop people from being interested. You really have 2 choices. You can trust her, or you can leave. He gave me a look that said it all, but he added words anyway. No offense, but you trusted her, and look how that worked out for you. You have to make your own choices, but we managed to stay together a long time, and I have 2 kids from it. He left without saying anything else. It was quite simple. I called Carlisle an hour later, and he mentioned the file on the case of Lee Henry. As I looked it over, I remembered something important, and had Cheryl call Spring City again. I thought I'd miss him because he might be at lunch, but he answered again. "Chief, there's something I forgot to ask. Do you have any DNA records on Lee Henry? Did he ever have to submit DNA samples for the job?" "No, I'm not sure how they do it in Jax these days, but no, there are no DNA samples. We have his fingerprints on file from when he was hired, but I don't know anyone who takes DNA from police officers. Plus, the body was damaged so badly that we didn't see any reason to keep samples. He was cremated. Why? It's a long shot, but there's a chance that Sutton might have gotten rid of evidence after the incident. Some items were kept. If we had something to match the blood on those items too, we could find something useful. There might be a lead. While we searched for clues to find Lee's killer, we found out he had a half-brother. They hadn't spoken for years, and for a time we thought he could be involved, but we ruled him out. Since he was Lee's only immediate family, when he asked for Lee to be cremated, we agreed. But, he continued, while you couldn't use his DNA to prove that the blood was Lee's, a half-brother might help confirm that the blood came from someone in Lee's family. You could use that to link your evidence to Lee's murder. You're right. It wouldn't prove it, but it would certainly give a jury something to think about. Can you get a DNA sample from the brother? If we knew where he was a wanderer. We let him go 4 months ago. He left town without leaving a new address or phone number, and although there was a car and license plate, I'd bet he switched that out. He could be anywhere in the country. By now, he might even be in a jail here or down in Mexico. Can you ask around to see if anyone knows where he is? I'd really like to find him. Right now, anything would help our case. I want it just as much as you do. Lee was my friend. I'll see what I can find out. I worked through lunch, having only a diet bar, but it was becoming easier to forget about eating. As the afternoon went on, I tried very hard to avoid calling or going to Dallas Edwards' office. I kept telling myself that there was some kind of invisible barrier around the 5th floor. As the hours passed, I almost called Debbie several times to cancel our meeting. I struggled to come up with a good reason for meeting her in person. Even in my own head, I couldn't find a logical explanation for what I was doing. Every bit of common sense told me this was a bad idea. A very bad idea. Not long ago, I would never have been able to stay in the same room with her. I had tried hard to put aside the anger between us. We were parents. We had to work together to help Kelly get through college and BJ through high school and college. We were looking at least 7 or 8 years of needing to cooperate. Even when we didn't have to see each other often, our kids would eventually graduate, get jobs, marry, and have families. They would do all the things kids do. But still, we could try to keep the time we spent together to a minimum. When Kelly and BJ had their own families, we could figure out a schedule that allowed us to be part of our grandchildren's lives without spending a lot of time together. The time we spent together could focus on specific issues and the needs of our children and grandchildren. This was different. I knew I couldn't let this situation go where I couldn't manage it. And Debbie had shown that she was just as cautious about any changes in our careful interactions. I should cancel. I told myself that many times. But the clock kept moving forward, and I didn't call her. Sometimes you win, and sometimes at 6:25 I drove into the parking lot of The Last Call. Debbie had said it was usually quiet during the week, but today felt different. There were only 2 empty spots, giving me minimal privacy. I saw Debbie's 2004 deep purple Toyota Avalon parked at the back, which meant she had likely been there for a while. People usually filled the front spots first. Luckily, one of the 2 open spots was right next to her, easy to spot. As I entered the bar, it felt alive like New Year's Eve. Every table was filled, and people were gathered 2 deep at the bar. On the small stage, 3 guys were playing upbeat dance songs while chatting with a few young women. "Bring out the champagne!" I heard someone yell, and soon 2 men started shaking champagne bottles and spraying it around. Laughter and cheers echoed, adding to the lively atmosphere. I pulled my attention away from the fun to find Debbie, who was at the end of the bar, surrounded by 4 men eager for her attention. She looked like she was having a good time, laughing and handling their advances with ease. As I walked closer, one of the men bumped into me, spilling his drink. "Hey, there's no room here, buddy. Move along," he said grumpily. I turned to Debbie. Need a rescue? Why would I? These guys are offering to buy me drinks and take me to fun parties, she replied with a teasing smile. Really? Do any of those offers seem realistic? Sounds too good to be true, I said, raising an eyebrow. The largest man leaned in. You should get lost, Shorty. She's with us. Did I hear her say that? It's easy to make promises at a bar, but actions matter more, I replied. Big talk, he said, pulling out a small pillbox. But before he could open it, Debbie stopped him with her hand. I wouldn't do that, Dave, she warned. He shot her a possessive look. Ignore him, Debbie. I've got something better. Nobody's watching. I stepped closer, placing myself between him and Debbie. His frustration was clear, and he seemed focused only on his goal. I reached into my waistband and showed him my badge. I held it up so he could see, keeping our voices low above the noise. What's that, a prank? He sneered. It's real, Dave. It says State Attorney's Office. I'm not a cop, but I can call one if I see you open that box and something's wrong. I'm also the one who decides if you get a warning or face charges later. Think about what might happen if you keep pushing this. I exaggerated a little. If we arrested everyone for using substances to influence others, half the men would end up in jail, leaving the rest to sit around. Still, I enjoyed the look of worry on his face as he considered my words. He turned to Debbie, confused. Is he serious? Do you know this guy? She gave a small smile and replied, Yeah, sadly, he's my ex. He's very protective and can be serious about what he says. He doesn't like any guy I'm with. He looked between us but noticed the pill bottle was missing. Hey, I was just fooling around with your girlfriend, he said, not looking at her. There's nothing in there but strong painkillers. I believe you. He turned to Debbie, but the words didn't come out. Before I looked at her other admirers, space opened up around us. You've always been a buzzkill, Bill. I remember some nights, but I stopped. I was trying to avoid that situation. It would be easy to fall back into a world I had left. I could return to it for a bit, maybe just one night. But the morning always came, and I wasn't sure I could deal with that again. I don't think this is a good idea, Deb. This isn't what I expected. I didn't think it would be like this, Bill. I've only been here a few times, mostly with Dr. Evelyn Kreider, my friend and doctor. You remember her, I think. We connected because men never looked at our eyes. But it's never felt like this before. I wasn't planning to join the competition unless you were going to support me. You need someone to pay the entrance fee. That's not funny, Debbie. I was joking, Bill. This is the first time we've met outside of court since that night at your gym. Oh, except for that morning with Miss Martinez. It feels strange. I'm just trying to lighten things up, not doing that well. No, but I asked you to come, so I'm sorry for making it harder. I just want to chat with you for a few minutes if we can find somewhere to hear each other. I can help with that, I heard from behind me, turning to see Armando Guzman standing there. He smiled at me, and I noticed he had a friendly smile for Debbie, which she returned. I wondered how often she had been here and how close she had become with Armando. I pushed that thought aside. Whatever had happened between them was not my concern. I liked Armando. Somehow, I said, waving my hand at the chaos, this doesn't feel like the neighborhood bar I know. He looked around and grinned. I know, Mr. Maitland. I like to run a nicer place. Quiet and personal. But I need to keep new people coming in for business. Nothing brings them in like fun and lively entertainment. Some might return for a peaceful night with a drink and some music from the piano bar. It's definitely drawing them in tonight, Armando. I was hoping for a peaceful evening to talk to Debbie, my ex-wife. Can we use your back office, Armando? Debbie asked, lightly touching his arm. I felt my heart race but tried to stay calm. That's a great idea, Mrs. Maitland. You and Mr. Maitland follow me. I'm busy out here tonight, so you can have some privacy. Would you like some wine or something stronger, Mr. Maitland? No, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Could we just have some coffee instead? Of course, right this way. We followed him to the back of the bar, through a narrow hallway that led into a decent-sized office. It had a phone, a computer, a fax machine, and a large desk. 3 comfortable chairs were arranged in a half-circle around the desk, with a glass coffee table sitting between the door and the chairs. A solid chair stood behind the desk. I noticed a large painting hanging on the wall behind the chair. The woman in the painting had long black hair and was looking to the side. Her striking lips and deep eyes drew my attention. She wore a red evening gown that gave her an elegant look. I wondered who she was smiling at. "Is she someone special?" I asked Armando, as he gazed at her too. He nodded and then looked away from the painting. "She was someone who loved me, but now she's married to a wealthy man in Mexico City. The last time I heard 5 years ago, she had 2 kids with him." He looked back at me. "I know I should have gotten rid of the painting. There's really no reason to keep it around to remind me of what I've lost. But some things are hard to move on from. You get it, Mr. Maitland. Now I'll leave you two alone." Debbie chose a chair on the far side and sat down gracefully, looking at me. "We could wait for the coffee, or you could tell me why we're here. What's going on, Bill?" "I just want to talk, Debbie." "Talk about what? We chat almost every day at the courthouse. You could call me. We're talking now. Why are you acting so mysterious? Are you okay? Did something happen? Are you taking another job somewhere? You said you weren't marrying Myra. I don't understand why we're here, and it's driving me a little mad." I took a seat across from her. "I'm sorry, Debbie. I'm not trying to be mysterious. I'm trying to figure out what I want to say." She looked surprised. "You've always told me what you wanted to say, Bill. Now you're making me worry." Just then, there was a knock at the door, and one of the waitresses came in with a tray full of coffee, cream, sugar, and sweeteners. She placed the item on the coffee table and walked away. I poured a cup of coffee for myself, and noticing Debbie looking at me, poured one for her too. "Do you remember what we were like at the start?" I asked. "I still don't," she began. "Do you remember those early years after we got married, after I started practicing law?" She stirred her coffee and looked down, clearly avoiding my eyes. "I do remember those years, Bill, but they were a long time ago. Everything has changed." "Yeah, everything, Debbie. Except," after a moment I added, "except how I feel about you." She closed her eyes and set her coffee cup down, covering her face with her hands. "Please, Bill. Not now. You said you wouldn't bring this up. We just got divorced. I'm learning to live without you. I'm building my own life. We can almost talk like normal people. You loved me, then pulled away. Now I don't want to go through this, Bill. I don't want to hurt you, but I can't help it." She looked at me with a troubled expression. "Your issue, Debbie, is that every man who sees you is drawn to you, and some, like me, fall in love. And you can't see any man wanting you for any reason other than for your looks, can you?" "I don't understand you." "Maybe that's the issue. There was a time you understood me, but we drifted apart, and now you see me like all the others who have pursued you." "You said you still feel the same way about me. What do you mean by that?" "Think of me as the husband you were for 20 years, as the friend who talked to you about my dreams and worries, the one who needed you when I was going through law school and those early times before I joined the state attorney's office." I reached for her hand, and after a moment of hesitation, she took it. I could feel her trembling. "You were my best friend, Debbie. I could talk to you about anything, and I respected your thoughts. You've always been wise and never held back your opinions. We started losing that connection when I joined the state attorney's office, and our lives took different paths." I gently squeezed her hand. "God, I've missed you. Not just having you around, but also our conversations. I need that now." She looked back at me, uncertainty in her eyes. "But can we do this, Bill? Can we talk as friends without other feelings getting involved? I don't want to hurt you again, and if you think there's something more, this might just be a one-time thing. It's not about us. It's about me." I needed someone to talk to, someone who knows me well, to see if my thoughts were reasonable or if I was about to make a big mistake. "You've set us up well for our future. I know you're trying to fix things with the kids and you're trying to be nice to me. I will talk with you, Bill, but this feels different. You usually don't have doubts like this. You decide what to do and go for it, no matter what anyone else thinks. It's hard to believe you're feeling uncertain or need advice from anyone." "Maybe that's part of it. Maybe I've started to believe in my own skills. A bit of the pressure I've felt has affected me, and I've lost sight of just being a lawyer." She looked at me in surprise. "What's wrong, Bill?" So I told her about Sheila Sutton and her unborn child. I explained how the body was found and how William Sutton could gain a lot from her death. He had a reputation for being easily angered and holding grudges, which made him see others in a negative way. "I know you filed charges against him. I remember Belle was a witness who could have shown that Sutton drove to Jacksonville. Belle is gone now, but you still have his recorded testimony. I just thought that we had a solid case. That's what most people thought. Even those who knew better believed I could make it work. Dallas has been in this long enough to see the flaws in our case, but he understood how much this mattered to me and let me take the lead. She took a sip from her cup, and I quickly finished mine and poured another. I wish I knew more about this, Bill. I have a bit of an idea, but you lost interest in my cases long before Mrs. Sutton passed away, didn't you? Why ask when you already know? To make me say what you know? That I lost interest in almost everything you did? That I lost interest in you? We both know that, Debbie. Now you have a rough idea of the case against Sutton. You can see how weak it is. There are no witnesses who saw them together the night Mrs. Sutton disappeared. There's some talk of her mentioning a meeting, but nobody actually saw them. And nobody saw Sutton in Jacksonville for the last 10 months either. We couldn't find any solid evidence against him. We didn't have anything to keep him accountable. Until Belle spoke up. He had been out of the area since before Mrs. Sutton's body was discovered and was ready to say that Sutton and his mother weren't truthful about Sutton's location the night his wife vanished. That really weakens Sutton's alibi if the jury believes Belle, she said. A little bit. We might be able to persuade the jury that Sutton lied about what happened the night his wife disappeared. But proving that he drove to Jacksonville, harmed his wife and child, and then returned, that's a whole different issue. So why did we file a case that seems unlikely to win? You never shied away from a challenge, Bill, but why file? To shake things up. We searched for any evidence against him for 10 months and found nothing. I filed the charges to get him arrested, bring him to court, and encourage him to rethink his stance. I knew we could drop the case any time after presenting our evidence. I took a sip of coffee and looked at Debbie, trying to understand her expression. You know, Debbie, we can't let any of this leave this room. She shook her head. I might have acted poorly at times, but did I ever give you a reason to think I'd share our secrets with anyone, Bill? No, I shouldn't have said that. There was a time when I wouldn't have. But anyway, the whole case has been a challenge with the hope that something would change. And of course, nothing has changed. No. Okay, I see the situation. But I still don't understand why you wanted to speak with me. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. It was easier to talk in the dark. If I had done nothing, time would have gone by. Too much time has passed already. There won't be any surprise witnesses coming forward. Sutton's mother will never betray him, and he's smart enough to avoid mistakes that could hurt him. I could have waited for him to slip up, which wouldn't be hard if he became too confident. A smart prosecutor would have waited, but I couldn't. I let my feelings take over my common sense, so I began preparing for the trial and made Belle a key part of it. Sutton had a dishonest sheriff help him, and when that didn't work, he and his mother managed to hurt Belle. I could have held off on filing charges. We could have taken Belle's statement during a regular investigation. Sutton would have known that he had enough time and that Belle might not make it. He wouldn't have felt pressured to act against the old man, so we could have delayed the trial. But I pushed the trial and angered Sutton. Belle didn't have a lot of time left, I knew that, but he had more time than he ended up getting. Because I let my anger and pride take control, I disrupted an old man's life sooner than necessary. I opened my eyes and couldn't read her expression. It was hard to remember when she would have supported me no matter what. So the reason I wanted to talk to you, Debbie, is to find out if I'm as foolish as I think I am. Did I cause the suffering of an innocent old man for no other reason than my pride? She leaned closer and said, You've had that side for a long time, Bill. But that's not why you went after Sutton, why you couldn't wait for a better chance. You know why you pursued him, why you couldn't stop yourself. It could have been a trick of the light, but I thought I saw tears in her eyes as she said, You're not going to let Sutton go. You're going to do what's right, the way you always have. You'll do whatever it takes to ensure he faces consequences for his actions. I took her hand. We lost our child, or God took him from us, and that man caused so much pain. You can't let him go. I don't want you to. I want to imagine him sitting in a cell facing the consequences for years. Do that and you'll make me happy. She was an outsider. I had experience as a prosecutor. What she thought about my fight to convict Sutton mattered more than I wanted to admit. Thank you, Debbie. For what? There's no one else in the world I would have listened to. It's too bad that things will always be different between us. It's changed a great friendship." She smiled. "Maybe when we're older. Not even then." Some things never change. We sat and looked at each other. Outside, I could faintly hear laughter, music, and people talking. "Was that all you wanted to talk about?" "Yeah. If you're done, I'll walk you out. Would you come back to the house with me?" "Why?" "Remember I said there was something I wanted to discuss? I'd like to do it at the house." "And you're not going to tell me what it is?" "Let me keep a little mystery for now." Once outside, we saw Armando serving drinks. The noise level had increased, and the atmosphere was more cheerful. The entertainment was also closer than before. I leaned in and whispered to him as I walked by, "How do you manage this without problems?" He pointed to the edge of the crowd where I saw someone in blue. This person was talking to one of the earlier contestants. "The officers who watch this area enjoy the friendly vibe here, and," he pointed to the man in blue, who was chatting with a woman in her 40s who seemed full of life. "Officer Bates met Miss Lawrence a few months ago at an event. He left work but returned to make sure she got home safely. I think they really connected. They are both in their 40s, divorced, and have kids. I believe they're even engaged now." Debbie had stopped and leaned back to listen. She reached past me to thank Armando with a quick gesture on the cheek. "You're such a romantic, Armando." He wiped his cheek and shrugged, saying, "Not really. It's just smart business. Plus, it helps to have all the officers on our side of town." I started to walk ahead when he grabbed my arm. "Mr. Maitland, Mrs. Mate Bascom, I know you can't enjoy the party, but please take this bottle of champagne as a gift from me. I really want you to have it." I was about to say no when Debbie reached over and took it. "Thank you, Armando. You never know when champagne might be useful." We walked outside and passed Bates, who was with a friend. As I went by, I said to him, "I wasn't here tonight, Bates. Just remember to be careful around closing time." "We always are, Mr. Maitland. I have 18 years in this job. I'm not going to mess it up now." As I walked away, I heard his friend ask, "Who was that?" While I walked her to her car, I couldn't help but ask Debbie, "Free champagne? You two must be good friends." "Just like you." I stopped at her car as she got in and asked, "You're not going to tell me what's going on?" "No, you'll have to come back to your house for a little while." "That's only fair. You came out for me. I'll see you there soon." I drove into the driveway behind her. It was close to 10 p.m. Many lights in the nearby homes were still on. I could hear traffic from State Road 13 a few blocks away, but this area was quiet. People didn't work night shifts here, and there weren't stores or gas stations to bring in late-night traffic. Most residents worked in offices and were already home and settled for the night. I stood there for a moment, enjoying the peace. This had been my life, even though I often came home late from work. I hadn't realized it then, but it made me feel like an outsider, even after living here for years. She was waiting for me at the door. She stepped inside ahead of me. From above, I could hear music, meaning BJ was home. As I walked in, she locked the door behind me. Then she went to the bottom of the stairs and called, "BJ, come down." The music played for a few more moments as she walked into the kitchen to put the champagne in the refrigerator. A voice came from upstairs. "What do you want, Mom?" She walked back into the living room, and I stared at her. Who was upstairs? She placed her hand on the stairs and said, "Your father is down here, BJ. I want you to come down and talk to him." There was a pause. "Mom? You called Dad? Why?" "Because he's your father." "This is silly. You can come down or I'll let him go up and see you." I recognized the voice. It was BJ. But I still felt something was off. He came down the stairs slowly. I'd seen him a few times in the last few months, but it had been too few. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was watching a stranger come down those stairs. As he reached the bottom step, I had to remind myself this was real. He used to be a bit shorter than me. When had he grown taller? When did the nearly 15-year-old boy start showing the first signs of becoming a young man? When did his boyish voice deepen? And who had caused him trouble? It was clear he had been in a recent disagreement. A black eye and bruises were visible on his right cheek. "What happened? Did you get into a fight?" He looked away. "It's nothing. Just an argument with someone after school." I didn't handle it well. I turned to Debbie. She said, "He came home like this last night. He asked me not to tell you or make a scene at school. I was planning to talk to you when you arrived this morning. We need to deal with this." "No, you don't have to." I stepped closer and gently placed my hand on his side. He flinched and moved away. Debbie looked worried. "He needs to see Dr. Carroll tomorrow morning." Dr. Carroll had been our family doctor for 5 years. He might have some broken ribs. I don't know what they can do for that besides wrap them, but there could be a risk of other injuries. He shouldn't be out and about without being checked. "Broken ribs? Other injuries? BJ, what is going on? You need to tell me." He stepped back, keeping his space. "It's nothing, just a disagreement. I can handle it." If more than one person was involved, at least 2 or 3 must have been there to overpower you. Debbie's eyes widened. "There were 2 or 3 boys. Why didn't you tell us?" When he stayed silent, she looked at me. "I want you to take him to the sheriff's office and file a report. And BJ, I want you to take this seriously." "Mom, just let me talk to him for a moment, Debbie." She stepped back to the kitchen. I could see the difference in him over the last few months. "All right, BJ, you need to tell me what happened." "It's nothing. Please forget it. You can either share what happened in private now, or I will talk to the school tomorrow with the authorities. We will meet with the principal about concerns involving safety and what happened. Everyone in the school, I think there are about 2,500 students, will hear about it. It might even show up in the news. You could end up as a public victim here." "You wouldn't do that." "I hope I won't have to. But it's obvious something occurred, and I suspect you might be hiding more injuries. I promise to handle this carefully." I remembered what it was like to be a high school student. We deserve to know what's happening. "You're not really going to do anything, are you?" "I can't promise that. Just talk to me." I called Debbie back into the room. Before he spoke, I said to him, "Please take off your shirt." After a moment, with a bit of encouragement from me, we both looked at the bruises on his chest and sides. She reached out to touch him, but he stepped back. "So, what happened?" "There's this guy, Jason Fromm. He's a junior and seems to think he's tough. He likes to push around younger students like me. We had some run-ins, but nothing serious until Angela Ball started talking to me. I like her, and Jason thought she was his until she told him otherwise. He didn't like that." "And does he have friends?" "Yeah, a couple of other juniors who are big like him but not as rough. They support him. They caught me behind the gym when I was leaving school." "I want you to take action against those kids, Bill. You can have them picked up from school tomorrow. I don't want them bothering our son anymore." "I can't." She looked at me, clearly getting more upset. "So, you can throw away our marriage, leave our son and daughter, and mess up our lives to protect other families? But you won't do anything to protect your own?" She took a deep breath, trying to control her feelings. "I hoped I was wrong about you, that maybe I misjudged you. But you're not the father I wanted. Why don't you just go back to your work and I'll handle our son?" I looked at BJ. "Explain it to her." "It's not him, Mom. The school isn't going to help. It would just be my word against Jason and his friends. They'll twist the truth and say it was my fault. If you or Dad do anything, it will just make it worse." She looked at him, then turned to me. "We have to do something, Bill. We can't let those kids treat him like this. There are things we can do, and I'll start working on them tomorrow. But tonight he needs to be checked to make sure he's okay." I called Dr. Gary Wells, the head of the ER at University Shands, and luckily he was off duty. When I explained what happened, he said, "You don't want any official records. I understand. I'll come over in 30 minutes. He examined BJ carefully, asking if it hurt when he pressed on his ribs. "Yes, but it hurts," BJ answered. When he finished, Dr. Wells looked at us. "I'm pretty sure the damage to his face is only skin deep. There are no signs of a concussion, but it looks like he may have 1 or 2 broken ribs. From what I can see, there's no internal bleeding or damage to his spleen." He then spoke to Debbie. "You can take him to the emergency room or any clinic you trust for x-rays and possibly an MRI to confirm this, but the signs suggest that's the case. The main problem is the broken ribs. If we wrap them tightly, it should help him breathe better and reduce some pain. I can give him some mild pain medicine, but he shouldn't need anything stronger. After I finished wrapping BJ's ribs and gave him some pain pills, it was almost 1 a.m. I thanked the doctor, and he left. BJ looked very tired, especially after taking the medication, and Debbie was ready to send him upstairs. If you go to school tomorrow, just say you fell and hurt your ribs. You'll have a note from Dr. Wells for any activities, I reassured him. Dad, what are you going to do? BJ asked. Nothing extreme for now and nothing to embarrass you. The weekend is almost here and you'll have Thanksgiving break next week. Just stay away from that kid and his friends. Make sure your teachers and gym coach know you're hurt. If he thinks clearly, he won't cause trouble that the school will notice. You should be okay until Christmas and I'll figure out what we can do. Dad, he protested, I'm not going to involve the police or do anything that might make you uncomfortable around your friends. Now go upstairs and get some rest. Your body needs time to heal. If I thought I would get a hug or a handshake, I was mistaken. He just nodded and went up the stairs. After all, he was almost 15. I'm glad you brought me here, Deb, I said. Me too. I never thought to check him for bruises, and I can't remember the last time I saw him without a shirt. You know how teenage boys are. I would have felt terrible if he had serious injuries. How did you know? You forget. Carlos has had me working out at his gym for nearly a year now. You learn things. He was walking like he had taken some hits. You still need to take him for a checkup in the morning. Dr. Wells is good, but better safe than sorry. You might be able to get him back to school for half a day. If not, he can miss a day, right? Not really, but we'll have to manage. I can't even ask if there's any way you could... No, I'm sorry, Deb, I really am. But I have a police officer coming in from down south, and he might make a big difference in the Sutton case. She shrugged. Why do I even ask when I already know the answer? I'm really sorry, Deb. If this wasn't already planned... Don't explain or apologize, Bill. I've heard it too many times. This time I understand. She looked into my eyes, then glanced around the room. I hadn't stepped further than the entrance. Everything seemed the same. It's funny how some things never change, right? The way you look, where we are in life, all of that changes. But the basics, who we are, that doesn't change. She pointed to the door. I appreciate what you've done, Bill, and I know you need to get home to rest. So, good night. I started to leave when she tapped me on the shoulder. I'm sorry for getting upset about BJ. I know that wasn't fair. I didn't mean to say those things. But you felt that way. At one time, not anymore. You were right, but I'm trying to do better. Old Loves Friday, November 18th. I seriously thought about going to the gym in the morning, but I slept in and didn't arrive at the office until after 9. I had only been there for 10 minutes when I got a call from one of the courthouse security guards. They told me Chief Evers from Spring City was downstairs. I had asked them to let me know because I wanted to greet him as he arrived. I asked the guards to ask him to wait a moment while I came down to see him. As I stepped off the elevators, I easily spotted him in the crowded entrance, just beyond the metal detectors. He was a tall man, at least 6'4", dressed in a police uniform with the Spring City Police emblem on his shirt. His shoes were shiny black and his pants had a sharp crease, looking almost perfect. He was looking around with interest. The security checkpoints had been set up just before he left town, but he must have had enough time to learn the courthouse layout while he was here before. As I walked closer, I noticed he had an alert look, taking in the entrance of the courthouse without being too obvious about it. But there was something else. He seemed a bit nervous, as if he was ready for anything. I knew he had worked in homicide for years and had dealt with tough situations, but that was 4 years ago. I didn't think he would still be so tense. Still, something made him cautious. I waved to the bailiffs at the security desk and said, "Chief Evers has clearance. Let him through." Local officers had clearance, and he would too. As he walked past them, he reached out his hand, and I shook it. "Mr. Maitland, I assume? I actually recognize your picture." "Chief, good to see you. I'm sorry we had to pull you away from Paradise, but we'll try to wrap things up quickly." He gave me a slight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I didn't mean to make it sound like coming up here was such a hassle. Spring City will be fine for a day. It's just that there are a lot of memories here, not all of them great. He paused and took a deep breath. "Anyway, I called Harry, and he'll arrive in a few minutes. I've brought all the information we have on Lee Henry's murder, including photos in this folder. Where would you like to meet?" "Let's go to the 4th floor. There's a conference room there where we can have some privacy. I'll have ADA Carlisle and one of our investigators, Mitch McConnell, join us. I was about to press the button for the elevator when she appeared around the corner. It sounds dramatic, but it felt like time stopped for a moment. She paused mid-stride, almost like those photos of racehorses caught in midair. In that moment, she filled my view, moving with a confidence that caught my attention. For a few seconds after she paused, it felt as if the energy shifted around us. She seemed to notice no one else until her eyes landed on the man beside me. She recognized him. I didn't need to turn around to know Evers' expression mirrored hers. That brief second revealed everything about how she felt about me and how Evers had held importance in her life. All my questions about his move from Jacksonville and his reluctance to return suddenly made sense. It's amazing what a split second can show. I understood it all in that moment, but processing it would take longer. Before I could reach for her, she turned and quickly disappeared from view. We stood there for a moment while the elevator dinged and its doors opened. People started to exit, and those behind us moved past to enter. The doors closed. I looked up at Evers, who was gently shaking his head. I knew I should have stayed away. You too? You? I nodded. Sometimes words aren't necessary. The elevator dinged again, and this time, when the doors opened, just 2 people got off as we stepped on. It was a long time ago. I thought I would have moved on by now. I confess, Chief, I didn't see that coming. Neither did I, Mr. Maitland. Neither did I. When we reached the 4th floor, I led him to one of the conference rooms where Cheryl was waiting. Would you like coffee, tea, or a soda, Chief? Just black coffee is fine. I asked Cheryl to get my usual Starbucks and something for him, too. We stood there looking at each other in confusion. Finally, I broke the silence. Maitland, this isn't how I expected today to go. I need to clear my thoughts and refocus on Lee and the case. What happened is part of the past, Chief. Let's focus on building a case against William Sutton and making sure he faces the consequences. We stood and talked for a moment, then sat down next to each other at the long oval table in the room. We began to look through the documents about the incident at Lee Henry's burned cabin in a quiet part of southern Putnam County. Cheryl returned with coffee about 10 minutes later, just as Harry Bass, followed by Mitch McConnell and Carlisle, walked in a couple of minutes after that. Evers and Bass clearly knew each other well, exchanging nods as Bass came in. He walked over to shake my hand. He was tall, probably 6 feet 2 inches, and weighed about 160 pounds, with messy, straw-colored hair. I often thought of him as the Straw Man because he looked like that character from the Wizard of Oz. He stood back a little. Mr. Maitland, great minds think alike. I was just talking to Gordon about a link between your case and his when your office got in touch with us. If I didn't know better, I'd say it was meant to be. It's encouraging to see that there's a real effort being made in the case. He couldn't help but smile slightly, aware of the joking tone behind his words, though it felt friendly. Harry had a unique appearance. His jaw was strong, with a long face and a noticeable nose, and his deep-set gray eyes were certainly striking. How did you make that connection, Harry? A guess? I asked. Just one of those feelings you sometimes get. After you filed the case against Sutton, I was visiting Gordon. He was trying to find a suspect, thinking about why someone would want to harm Lee. It hit me that Lee was killed just a few days after Mrs. Sutton went missing, before her body was found. And, as you know, the route from Jacksonville to Ocala, where Sutton lived with his mother, passes right through Spring City, I added. Which made us wonder if the 2 cases could be linked, Evers said, opening a folder and spreading out photos on the table. There were pictures of a log cabin with modern features, the burnt remains, items found near the fire, and a photo of a good-looking man in his 30s smiling at the camera. When we checked, we found out Lee was working the night shift the same night Mrs. Sutton disappeared, Harry said, jumping back in. Evers continued smoothly. And what Harry discovered was that you guys believed Sutton took his mother's car and drove to Jacksonville late at night, harmed his wife, and then drove back home early the next morning. We started to think about how fast Sutton would have needed to drive to pull that off. In other words, Mitch added, Sutton would have had to be driving very fast. Fast enough that Officer Henry might have noticed him, stopped him, and given him a speeding ticket, Carlisle said. Sutton would have had to sign a speeding ticket and leave a copy with Henry, and it's likely he would have left fingerprints on the ticket pad. Harry glanced around the table with a smile. Like I said, great minds. When Harry smiled, you had to pause to decide if he was really happy or in some discomfort. It showed once again that if you wanted to impress others, being unique was better than being ordinary. I let myself imagine for a moment. That's really surprising. I can hardly believe it happened. It would give him a reason to hurt Officer Henry and create a serious gap in the excuse he and his mother made up. It wouldn't prove that he harmed his wife, but it might make the jury see that he and his mom weren't being honest. And there's always a chance that if we get enough people to testify about what a difficult person he has always been, they could decide to convict him just because they don't like him, if we're lucky. But a big question still lingered. Is there any proof for that theory? I asked Evers. Did you find a copy of the ticket? He shook his head. No, that's the first thing we thought about. We didn't find it, but that doesn't mean there's nothing. Why not? Spring City isn't a big place like Jacksonville. It's a small community of about 4,000 people that was started about 25 years ago. Until 15 years ago, we didn't have a police force. The Putnam County Sheriff's Office would come by now and then and respond to calls. But fishermen and outdoor enthusiasts really like this place. We have motels, a few nice hotels, and restaurants now. There's a plant that makes fishing lures that are sold all over the world. So, 10 years ago, the town council, which is made up of 3 men who enjoy the title of councilman, decided to set up a police department. Now we have a 3-person team. There's me, Officer Evelyn Smith, and Lee Henry was the 3rd officer. We've hired a young man, Casey Collins, to take his place. We rotate our shifts, each working 8 hours. We don't have our own communication department. We mostly talk to each other through the county dispatcher, who is available all day. He tapped his fingers on the desk. Which means that for a long time before I arrived, they stored the tickets in boxes sorted by date in a leased building for the police station. The city finally built us a proper 1-story police station 5 years ago, so the records have moved a couple of times. We have a lot of tickets. I wouldn't say we're a speed trap, but many drivers seem to think the speed limit is 90 miles per hour, and the town earns a good amount from those tickets. Anyway, we have many boxes in a concrete building that used to be a private shed. He looked at me with a slightly sheepish expression. It was a different place, but he had been a police officer in Jacksonville and knew how a proper record-keeping system should work. We've had 5 murders in the 4 years I've been here, and except for Lee and one other case that our friend Harry helped with, they were all related to family or relationships. Maybe there were 60 assaults, usually between people who knew each other. Most of them we managed to settle without going to court. It's easier that way. What I mean is that we don't have a lot of crime, and the shed has everything we really need. But you can't find the ticket? No, we've searched, but there is no way to know if Lee just put it in the wrong spot or if it got lost. Most people pay their tickets right away. They don't want to come back later. So, canceled tickets are usually not kept for any special reason, except just to hold on to them. What he said made sense. In a small shed where tickets were stored, it could take a long time to find one that was misplaced. And I knew without asking that Evers didn't have enough staff to check all the tickets. We could find some money to hire someone in Spring City that Evers trusted to help sort through everything. The only thing that concerns me a bit, Chief, is that this is still quite uncertain. We're guessing that Henry stopped Sutton and wrote him a ticket or did something else, maybe just gave a warning. Do you have anything to back that up? Evers smiled. Actually, Mr. Maitland, we do. Remember I mentioned that we use the Putnam Sheriff's Office dispatcher for any messages we need? After Harry made the connection, I went to the sheriff and asked to look at the logs of his dispatchers. They record every call and keep them in order. I found the recording from the night Mrs. Sutton was killed, and clearly Lee is on there at 1 a.m. letting them know he stopped a car going 90 miles per hour on 17, about to take a little road to 95 North. It's just a short detour, but at 1 a.m. in a quiet area, the chances of running into police are low, and once you get on 95 and into Jacksonville traffic, you're almost unnoticeable. It was a routine call. I always reminded our officers that when they were alone making a stop at night, they should check in with the sheriff, just to keep them informed. I told them to always give a description of the car they stopped and the license plate number. Unfortunately, Lee had served in Iraq, so he wasn't easily scared by situations that others might find risky. So all he did was share a quick message about stopping the car and gave a short description of it. No license plate number. 10 minutes later, he called the sheriff's office again to say that the driver had been polite and had fixed the issue right away, promising to watch his speed until he got home. And the description? He shared it, and McConnell almost jumped up. "Mr. Maitland, that is Mama's car. We have found the suspect." There are probably 10,000 cars like that on the road in Florida, and several thousand that color. "True," Harry replied, "but this gives us a solid reason to look into Lee's death. It's not just a guess anymore." "It's still a guess," I said, trying to stay grounded, "but it's more hopeful." "You're being too cautious," Harry said. "This is exciting, Maitland. Now you have two paths to explore. You can keep looking for something to charge him with concerning his wife's death." "His wife and son, Harry. People often forget." He gave me a look. I wasn't sure how many outside our family knew about the son we had lost, but there were times when I thought Harry seemed to understand more than he let on. "You're right, Maitland. I can't say you can hold him responsible for his unborn son's passing, but if you can get him for his wife or for Lee, that will be enough. You can only take action once." Evers suddenly stood up, stretched, and moved his left leg. "Sorry, I hurt my leg years ago. They fixed it, and it hasn't caused many issues, but it can get stiff when it's cold. Do you mind if I stretch?" "Go ahead." He walked across the room and back, then did it again. When he came back, he said, "We still have issues, Mr. Maitland. There are things about Lee's murder that don't add up. If it was Sutton." "Like what?" "We had the county coroner look into what was left of Lee and his dog. There were no signs that either had been shot. No bullets were found. The dog, a big one, was seriously hurt. He was very loyal to Lee. If he had been alive, he wouldn't have let anyone get near Lee's cabin, especially since it was remote and Lee was careful. The coroner said it looked like Lee hadn't been shot either. There was major damage to his skull, serious harm. Someone must have used a heavy object to hurt him." "Why wouldn't Sutton use a gun?" Carlyle asked. "He had no problem attacking someone who couldn't defend themselves, but I can't see him doing that to an armed officer. Sutton isn't reckless." "It's more complicated than that," Harry replied. "Gordon and his partner checked, and no one saw Sutton in town. Lee was killed just a few days after Sutton's wife. How did Sutton know where Lee lived, or that he had a large dog? How did he learn anything about Lee's cabin or his location? The big question remains, why didn't he use a gun?" Evers said. I thought about this, and an idea began to take shape. "Did Sutton have a weapon before his wife died? Do you know, Mitch?" "I don't think so. It doesn't really matter, but it seems likely that he didn't have one. He wouldn't have harmed his wife because even if he hid the weapon, he would worry it might be found, which could cause big problems. If he used another way, he wouldn't have that risk." I relaxed a little, starting to understand. He wasn't carrying anything when Officer Henry stopped him. I think his first thought was to attack him, but he couldn't be sure if Henry reported his car. Plus, Henry was a big guy and armed, so Sutton wasn't going to take any risks. The more I explained, the clearer it got. This was mainly guessing with just a few facts, but it sounded reasonable. So he paid the ticket and drove off, but he couldn't know when his wife's body might be found. It could be a month or just a day. He couldn't take the chance of her body being found soon, as it could make Henry remember the man he stopped for speeding. Sutton couldn't allow that. And he couldn't buy a weapon then because even if we didn't arrest him, we'd be watching him closely, probably getting a search warrant to check his mother's home, Carlyle said. Buying a gun would have attracted too much attention. Yeah, the only way he could get rid of Henry without leaving clues that could lead to big problems would be to do it neatly and quickly. Evers was still pacing. "I see that, but there's still the issue of how Sutton knew what to expect. How did he know about the dog, the cabin?" Harry snapped his fingers. "Go back, Gordon, and find someone who disappeared around that time. I bet it was a woman. Lee was careful about men, but he had many women visiting over the years. I bet you had women who could easily describe the place. Sutton would have known exactly what to expect and how to handle it." "Wow, Harry, You think he harmed 3 people? 5, I said, looking down at the dark remains of a good cop and friend of Evers. His wife, his unborn son, Officer Henry, an unknown woman, and an old man named Bell, who he just had taken in at a hospital up here. That is a terrible person, Harry said. He faced an armed officer and a big dog with only a club. He certainly shows bravery. Yeah, he's a terrible person, and he's brave. We talked for another hour about how we'd work together on our investigation. After we settled our plans, McConnell and Carlyle left. When are you going to stop running around and get an editing job where you can sit down and work comfortably? I asked Harry, knowing the answer. When I'm done, Maitland. When I'm done. You've read the Macefield poem, Clay Lies Still, but Blood's a Rover. You're a well-read man. It's true. While you're alive, you have to keep moving. I really enjoy what I do. I work outside, and as a reporter, I meet new people every day. Each day brings new chances. Until you meet someone who doesn't want to see you. It will happen at some point. I'll attend your memorial. Evers patted his friend on the back. He's living a good life, Maitland. He'll probably outlive us and end up with someone rich. He just laughed. I couldn't see it either, but stranger things happen. Gord, I'm going downstairs. I need a break or I won't be able to focus. Want to have lunch? You can treat me. Me? You have an expense account here. I know how Maitland works. Benny's would be a great place to eat. You're going to make this last a while, aren't you? The TU is tight with expense accounts. Okay, go on downstairs and enjoy your break. Give me about 20 minutes. Bass glanced at Evers and shook his head. You shouldn't do it, Gord. Just let her be. You're my friend, not my mother. Take a step back. After Harry left, we stood quietly. Bad breakup? You could say that. I hear you're with her now. Until a few days ago. How long? We've known each other for 5 years, but we only got serious a few weeks back. It didn't last long. How about you? A year. Did she end it? It was mutual. I think I took it harder. I know I did. She's tough to let go. That she is, Maitland. That she is. If it had just been the relationship, it would have been hard enough. You know what I mean, but she really got to me. I started thinking about settling down. It's something when women are more unsure about commitment than men. Times are changing. He didn't reply and walked toward the door. He paused just before the doorway. I could warn you, Maitland, but it won't help. You'll have to find out the hard way, just like I did. Good luck. He looked at her sitting at the desk. It reminded him of another time. Hello, Dulcina. She turned as he walked in and stood by the desk. For a moment, he was taken aback. She had always caught his attention, especially the first time he saw her walking into the courthouse. Other detectives joked with him, saying she was too good for someone like him. A working detective would never get close enough for a real relationship. And yet... Hello, Gordon. I didn't think I'd see you again. I didn't think I'd see you either. I wouldn't have returned if a friend of mine hadn't been killed and I had to assist Maitland with the investigation. I hoped you had moved on. Is it really that bad? Worse. It feels like an old wound has reopened. Why haven't you moved on? You know the answer. I haven't met the right person. Maitland isn't the right person. We both know that. Why are you with him? She shot him a cold look, just like the one she had given him almost 5 years ago when he awkwardly tried to connect. Sometimes being stubborn can be helpful. That's not your concern, Gordon. We're not together. I hope I've learned from what happened between us. If I decide to be with him, that's my choice. Don't treat him the way you treated me, Dulcina. It's Myra. It's Dulcina, and I know you better than he does. Harry told me about Maitland. He's been through a lot. He's trying to get his life back on track. He doesn't need you adding to his troubles. The coldness in her eyes felt worse than if they were from a stranger. Even after knowing what had happened before, it was hard to believe she had become so distant. I appreciate your concern for Maitland, but he's an adult. And what happens between us is our business. I hoped you had moved on and found someone new. It took me a couple of years to heal, but I did. I met a nice woman and we're thinking about making it official soon. I believe she wants me for who I am. I really think we will make it. Those green eyes that once filled his world shone brightly as she replied, I wish you the best, Gordon. I truly do. I hope she makes you happy. I would wish you well too, Dulcina, but I honestly don't think you'll ever find someone who makes you happy. I feel sorry for you. She watched him as he walked away. Old Loves 2. I stood by the window, watching the bright sun shine down. The weather was quite warm, likely in the low 70s. It seemed strange for this time of year, but newcomers probably noticed it more than anyone else. This window was my favorite part of the office. Standing in front of the glass, looking at the northern sky and watching the clouds change, helped me calm my mind. It was a simple escape, a moment of peace amidst the workday. It was nearly 12:30. Bass and Evers had left for lunch, probably heading to Benny's, and I guessed Evers would stop by Myra's office on the way. Many of my colleagues were eating at their desks or picking up food. I stood there, trying to convince myself to eat something too. I wasn't worried about skipping meals. I still had food, but I noticed I had been missing more meals without feeling hungry. After my breakup with Debbie, I thought it was just a phase, and I would get back to my normal eating habits eventually. But that hadn't happened. I managed to eat when Aline visited or when I was out with someone, but I realized my weight was still slowly dropping. Sometimes I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror and paused, not recognizing the person I saw. I was lost in these thoughts when there was a knock at the door. Cheryl? No, it's Mr. Maitland. I figured Cheryl was out for lunch like many secretaries, so I opened the door. A woman stood there, short, around 5'3" or 4", with light brown hair trimmed short in a pixie style. She wore glasses and looked like someone who worked in law enforcement or a similar field. After 20 years near the courts, I could usually tell. Can I help you? I'm sorry to disturb you during lunch, Mr. Maitland. May I have a few minutes of your time? I'm with parole and probation in Columbus, Georgia, and I have a case related to your office. Sure, I'm likely not going anywhere. What can I do for you, miss? Higginbotham. Jennifer Higginbotham. She came into my office and glanced at my desk before sitting down. She seemed to study the desk while trying to settle in. As I got comfortable, I looked at her too. I didn't know her, but there was something familiar about her face or voice. I decided to ask her about it when we finished our conversation, as such mysteries can linger in your mind. So, Miss Higginbotham, what brings you here? She opened a folder from her briefcase and placed it on my desk, sliding a photo and a document toward me. The photo showed a young man with dark hair in a Georgia Department of Corrections uniform. The document identified him as 24-year-old Johnny Lee Patton, who was serving a 5-year sentence for auto theft and receiving stolen property. 5 years seems light for those charges. Is this about an auto theft ring? Stealing cars and selling parts, perhaps? Exactly. He received the 5 years because his older brother Frank led the operation and brought Johnny Lee into it. Before that, Johnny had no previous troubles with the law. He's a decent kid who got caught up because of his brother. I pushed the photo and document back to her. Okay, what does this have to do with us? Johnny served only 2 years in a minimum security facility and was released to a halfway house. That's where he met Amber Talwin. She lives in Jacksonville but was visiting her sister in Columbus. They came together and have been dating for 2 years. And young love. She looked at me as if she had seen many young people make impulsive choices for love. A mix of frustration, tiredness, and a hint of envy crossed her face. She works hard but always tried to see him. However, she couldn't visit for a few weeks, and he decided he couldn't wait any longer. One Friday night, he drove to Jacksonville. They went to a bar with her friends, and another guy started to flirt with her. Johnny stepped in to protect her. Unfortunately, he ended up getting arrested, and it turned out he was on parole and shouldn't have been in Florida. Now he's in Duval County Jail waiting to be taken back to prison in Georgia. He broke his probation. I'm not sure what to do, Miss Higginbotham. He's still a good kid. If he goes back, I worry the same problems might happen again because of being young and in love. I looked closely at her face. There was indeed a strong connection, but I couldn't figure it out. As for what you can do, you run this office. Everyone knows that. All you need to do is look at the details of the incident and Johnny's arrest, decide it was just a little Friday night trouble, and drop the charges. I, as a representative of probation and parole, will suggest that Johnny needs some guidance, but not prison time. I'll add another 6 months of probation to his time, which he must complete before he is free from the state's watch. I thought about it for a moment. Have you thought about how you're not really solving his problem? That's 6 more months he'll be away from her. She smiled and shook her head. She accepted his proposal while he was in jail. As soon as he can, he plans to marry her. She's already made plans to move to Columbus and rent an apartment. He'll stay at a halfway house, but he'll see her every day. I believe they can make that work. Do you have everything figured out? I hope so. Except for you, Mr. Maitland. It all depends on your choice. But I feel that the Bill Maitland I once knew would do the right thing and show kindness to 2 people in love. I remember you, I knew I did. But I still can't remember your name. I'm sorry, but... She stood up and pointed to the metal ship with the clock inside that had followed me from college to office for 20 years. You kept it. I always thought that Debbie would make you get rid of it. She was always a strong personality. Then it all clicked. I walked around the desk and she met me halfway. Jenny Truden, I can't believe it. Where have you been? I hugged her tightly. It wasn't more than a warm embrace filled with memories. Her eyes sparkled. Jenny? Columbus, and you know why I left. She had been one of my closest friends in my first year of law school. She always supported me while I worked towards my goal of becoming a lawyer. After my breakup with Debbie, Jenny helped me stay focused and kept my life on track. She had been a true friend. I walked away from her, forgetting everything she had done for me the night Debbie said she would take me back if I promised to trust her completely. It didn't matter how much gossip circulated about us or how people whispered as we walked by. I thought you moved to Atlanta. No one heard from you again. I wanted people to think I was in Atlanta. I've lived in Columbus for 20 years. And people said... She stepped back and gave a small smile. I know what people said, and I understand why, but it's hard to start a family when you're not in a romantic relationship. But you were popular. You went out. You had admirers. Not the one I wanted. He never saw me as more than a friend. I struggled to find the right words to say. You don't need to say anything, Bill. I knew you never looked at anyone but Debbie. But I couldn't help myself. Like I said, young and foolish. I get it. I think we were all young and foolish. Isn't that what that time in our lives was all about? She stayed quiet, stepping back to her desk to gather her papers and slip them back into her folder. On behalf of Johnny and his girlfriend, thank you, Bill. You did a good thing today. I have to go now. I know you're busy, and I have some things to take care of. I booked a room at the Omni, but I need to leave early in the morning. My son is staying with friends, but I told him I would go shopping for Thanksgiving with him on Saturday. Your son? Something in my voice made her laugh gently. Relax, I didn't take advantage of the situation, Bill. Although... She smiled. I have to admit there were moments when I thought about it, but it wouldn't have worked out. He's 15. I was only married to his father for 4 years. It was a difficult marriage, but it gave me Liam. So, it was worth it. She started toward the door. As she passed me, I reached out and took her hand. She paused, but didn't look at me. Do you have any big plans tonight, Jenny? No, just grabbing a bite to eat somewhere. Maybe I'll just stay in, have room service, and watch a new movie. It's nice having an expense account. We were good friends once, and it's been nearly 20 years. I have things to do, but I could get off by 6 or 7. Let me take you out for dinner. We can catch up on everything that's happened. I really don't think Debbie would like that idea. Isn't she expecting you home soon? No, she's not expecting me, and she never will. I knew that. I heard that, and it made me feel a little better to know. It's ancient history now, Jenny. 8 months later, and it feels like much longer. It's funny how things turn out, Bill. I thought she would keep you right by her side. I wouldn't say funny, but things change. Let me take you to dinner at the Riverwalk. Where are you staying? Room 322. You can freshen up and I'll call you when I'm free. Sound good? She touched the side of my face lightly and said, I can't get used to you with that shaved head, Bill. It will grow on you, I replied as she walked out. Something in the air. Friday, 1:30 p.m. Miss Bascom, you have a visitor. Who is it? A Mr. Hamilton, Roger Hamilton. I don't know that name and I don't have an appointment. She heard a man's voice. We don't know each other and I don't have an appointment. I'm sorry for coming in without notice, but if I could have just a moment of your time, I'll be quick. She paused for a moment. It was a quiet time before Thanksgiving week, and no one truly focused on work more than needed. It felt similar to the calm before big holidays when people were less serious. You had to work, but only a few were really focused on it. Send him in. He was tall and well-dressed, with a head of messy blonde hair that looked better than most. He was good-looking and effortless in his charm. He offered a friendly smile, which made her smile back as she stood up from her desk. Mr. Hamilton, this isn't our busiest time of the year. I assume you have a good reason for being here without an appointment. Most people call first. He glanced at her quickly, but returned his gaze to her eyes afterward. Points for him. He smiled again and looked at the shiny watch on his wrist, a Rolex. But she expected that. 10 seconds, that's enough time. Can I ask, did I pass your first test? She was a bit surprised. It had been a while since she had casual conversations like this. She usually handled things differently. I find it hard, Mr. Hamilton, to understand what you mean by test. And if it's what I think, then you're wasting both our time. His smile didn't fade. I believe you know exactly what I mean, Miss Bascom. I do have business here, or at least a reason to be. But honestly, first impressions are important. 10 seconds should have been enough to see if there's any spark between us. I'll let you decide. If you don't feel a connection, I'll handle my business and leave you alone. If there is a chance, I may contact you again, leaving it all in your hands. She sat back down and took a moment to collect her thoughts. It wasn't as if she was making any promises. I sense, Mr. Hamilton, that you've done this before. You seem like an interesting man. I'm not saying I want to take things further, but if you do reach out, I won't ignore you. Fair enough. When he explained why he was there, she couldn't help but laugh. The Jacksonville Chamber of Commerce wanted to connect with the public defenders and state attorney's offices for future projects together. And that is why you decided to come to my office? To discuss city promotions? You could have just called. Hamilton, the vice president of public relations for the chamber, smiled widely. But if I had done that, I wouldn't have had the chance to meet you. Making connections is a big part of my job. I realize it might seem like I wasn't being completely honest, but sometimes you have to take chances. He looked at her in a way that suggested he could be fun to be around if the situation was right. And you are certainly someone worth getting to know. I meant to stop by earlier, but I know you recently went through a divorce. I can relate, as I went through the same thing 5 years ago. It can be a tough time. I hope you're feeling better now. Thank you for the chance to work with the chamber. While I'm not sure if I'll agree when you call, I'm glad you came in person, Roger. Her smile told him he would likely be in touch again soon. At 4 p.m., Leary walked into her office while she leaned back and rubbed her lip. Leary noticed the large man just leaving. Is that... Yep. What kind of issues are the Jaguars facing that would lead them to the public defender's office? She gave him a tired smile. The Jaguars want to build connections with the community, and he came by to invite me for a tour of their facilities and to sit in a VIP box for a game before the season ends. Leary gave her a knowing look. Why you and not the public defender? Well, for one, Johnny would have quite a challenge with that. And he doesn't have the same charm. She shook her head, pouring herself a glass of iced water and gulping it down. Even though she hadn't done much, she felt worn out. Is something in the air, Patrick? Not sure where you're going with that. He was the fourth person to come into the office in the last 4 hours offering opportunities for connections, collaborations, and game tickets. In other words, they're all interested in you. And they all look good, are well-connected, and appear well off the kind of people want to be around. They are showing up out of nowhere. What's going on? Have you looked in a mirror lately, boss? I've always looked this way, Patrick. Why are these people coming up to me now? He sat on the edge of her desk. I'm not sure how things were at UNF, but when you arrived here, everyone knew you were just out of a long marriage. It might just be the right time. The news is out that you're single and people are noticing. She chuckled. Get off my desk, Patrick, and go do something. Or did you want to chat about something? Yeah, but just a quick question. How tall was he? 6'7" and 270 pounds. He told you that? I read the sports pages. What size shoe does he wear? Don't go there, Patrick. Patrick struggled not to grin. I heard he wears a big size. And? You know what they say about tall men? No, what do they say? He opened his mouth, but before he could answer, she interrupted. Not a word, Patrick. You said you had business. Though it was clear he wanted to follow up, he became serious again. Are you familiar with the Buddy Bishop case? Yeah. The 14-year-old drowned the 1-year-old. Last I heard, the state attorney's office was deciding what charges to file. They haven't made any announcement yet, but I've learned... Which secretary or ASA are you talking to now? A true gentleman doesn't share that. But I've heard they plan to charge the 14-year-old as an adult for first-degree murder. That's crazy. That's not all. The Bishop family has another child, a 12-year-old girl. They're considering charging the mother with negligence and moving the girl into care. No way. The charges will go through Bill, and I can't see him approving that. We don't know everything yet, and this is the kind of case that will push for action to keep kids from avoiding serious consequences. Justice for Victims has chapters in around 20 cities with about 50,000 members. There have been many cases in Florida where kids under 15 committed serious crimes but faced little punishment. Our office has already received calls urging that this young person be held accountable. There will always be people pointing fingers, Patrick. There can't be enough of them to change the state attorney's mind. Bill wouldn't go along with that. Patrick rubbed his chin, hesitant to say what he was thinking. Finally, he spoke. You know Bill better than I do, but I'd bet he wouldn't agree. Still, in less than a year, I expect Dallas Edwards to be running for governor. Edwards is a good guy, but he's also a politician, and Bill works for him, not the other way around. Many people are upset about kids getting away with serious crimes and facing little consequence. Still, I know my ex-husband. He wouldn't allow that. Probably. But how many times can he fight against the system? He went up against Edwards and others to go after Sean Smith. He risked it all and got through it. If this situation gains attention and the election gets closer, I wouldn't be surprised if Edwards takes it away from Bill for someone else to handle. Do you really think Dallas would do that? He's been planning for a governor run for a long time, and he doesn't have endless chances. This could be one of his last ones. I don't know what he'll do. Have you been assigned the case? You get to decide the assignment, but I was really hoping you'd give it to me. You'll give it your all? No matter who I have to deal with, even if it's your ex. It's yours, Patrick. Do your best. I don't want that 14-year-old to serve time, and I don't want that mother to lose her daughter. Anything is allowed? Anything is allowed. I knew there was a reason I liked you, Leary said, heading for the door. Old Loves. As Leary approached the door, he nearly bumped into a tall man standing in the doorway who looked at him with a curious smile. She glanced up at him as he left and felt something strange, something she couldn't name. Something about his face seemed familiar. I hope I didn't interrupt anything, Miss Bascom. After a moment, she replied, No. She continued to look at him. Just tell me you're not here to ask me out. He stepped into the office and paused in front of her desk. He was a large man, probably around 6'4" and very strong. That might hurt my feelings. The first thing a stranger hears from you is that you don't want to go out with him, even before I ask. She smiled at him. I'm sorry. That came out wrong. It's just that suddenly, it seems like guys are showing up wanting to spend time with me. Mr. Keith Ransom, if this isn't a good time, Miss Bascom, I can always come back later. No, please come in. You're not here to offer me box tickets to Jaguars games or a city job, are you? You're not some city official, right? He smiled, and she felt more certain than ever that she had met him before. No, I came here for personal reasons. What kind of personal reasons? To ask you out. He chuckled at her surprised expression, saying, It's not what you think, Debbie. I'm just joking about the date. I couldn't help it. But I came by to say hi. His dark hair was a mix of deep brown and black, styled neatly. A few strands of gray peeked out at the sides. It was thick, and he was clean-shaven, though a little stubble showed on his chin. She noticed his big hands were smooth with well-kept nails. His suit, with the jacket left open, looked very elegant. She knew the clothes were not ordinary. They were made just for him, fitting his broad shoulders and slim waist perfectly. He wasn't classically handsome like Harrison, but he had a strong jaw and bright blue eyes that reminded her of clear water. Can I sit down? Yes, but first tell me who you are. I feel like I know you." He took a seat, crossing his legs. He seemed more impressive sitting down. "Do you remember a party at the Phi Delt house one Friday night in October 1984? No? Do you?" He looked at her for a moment before meeting her eyes. "I remember it well. I can still hear the music and recall the beer they were serving. You came in with Buddy Ryan and two of his friends. I couldn't take my eyes off you. I'd seen you around before, but up close. You were stunning." "I went to a lot of parties, Mr. Ransom, and I honestly don't remember much. I was usually just enjoying myself. But they were still good times. You seemed relaxed at first, but then you started to shine. I came over to chat while Buddy was busy with his friends. You seemed a bit lonely, so we talked. I got you some drinks, and then you wanted to dance. We danced, and Buddy saw what was happening and came over. He rubbed his fist in his other palm, remembering. I talked to him, and he didn't want to keep pretending. Some others thought about stepping in, but I was as big as anyone on the football team, and I was usually easygoing. They saw me looking at you and found other ways to keep busy." She focused on him a little more. "I think I vaguely remember that. It surprised me how fast things changed. Do you remember us talking about getting some drinks and maybe going out to Payne's Prairie to enjoy the night?" "I think so. It was cold. I do remember that." "Do you remember lying on a blanket, talking and feeling the warmth of the firelight around us? And you there in and out of the light and shadows?" The office was quiet, and even with good lighting, it felt like it was getting darker. "I looked at you, lying back on the blanket, and I thought I'd never seen anything so beautiful." She shook her head to clear her thoughts. "It's coming back to me, Keith. The next part I remember really well." He leaned back, and she hadn't noticed he was getting closer to her. "I'm glad I made an impression, Debbie. You made an amazing impression on me." "I'm flattered. That was a long time ago. We were both very young." "Yeah, too young to see what I had. We went out a few times, then we had a disagreement, and suddenly you were with someone else. Then at the frat house, Maitland came in and took you away. Things happen." "Yeah." He sat up in the chair. "I went on to get my business degree and started working in my dad's restaurant chain. When I began, we had 14 Southern Comfort restaurants, and now we have 100, from Miami to Arkansas to the Virginias. You've done well, Keith. Congratulations." "I haven't done too badly. I checked on you a few times over the years. I heard you married Maitland, and I thought it wouldn't last. Then about 10 years ago, I found out you two made it work. Then a few months ago, I read an online story about the Angel of Death and realized it was about Maitland. It mentioned you two had separated. I thought I'd say hello the next time I was in Jacksonville, just for old times." She stood up and walked around the desk. He stood, and she was surprised again at how tall he was. She reached up, and he bent down so she could kiss his cheek. "I'm glad you came back, Keith. It was a long time ago, and I'm a different person now. But I still remember that night on Payne's Prairie. It's a nice memory." "Good enough that you might consider going out for dinner or drinks sometime." She paused for just a moment. "Probably." He placed his hands on her shoulders. "It won't be any time soon. I have to leave Jacksonville tonight for work. It might be a few weeks or a month before I can come back. But I will return. Goodbye, Keith." After he left, she sat back behind her desk. It felt like something had changed in her life, making it much more interesting. I held her chair for her and then pushed it in after she sat down. I took a seat beside her. From the table, we could see through the glass down to the dark water of the St. John's 2 floors below. Boats with colorful lights drifted by, and the decorated bridges made the scene look like a giant Christmas tree. "It's a beautiful view, Bill. Jacksonville has many good things about it." I couldn't hold back my words as I glanced at her. "Yes, it's a lovely view." She looked at me, then lowered her head, her cheeks turning slightly pink. "What I meant, Jenny, is that you have really changed for the better. I don't know where the official probation and parole lady went, but you are a nice surprise." "Thank you, Mr. Maitland. You look great, too, and that shaved head is starting to grow on me." She wore a nice skirt that flattered her shape. She must have chosen something smooth for a polished look. Her top was soft and elegant, making her look even nicer. Her lipstick was bright pink, and her big earrings stood out. I remembered the jokes we shared when she was trying to distract me from Debbie about how I liked bold choices. I didn't really appreciate subtle things. That was true, but her jokes helped keep my mind off things. The waiter approached, dressed smartly. O'Grady's was a popular steak place on the second floor of the landing, known for its great view. But for the price, its steaks were among the best in Jacksonville. The waiter asked her what she wanted to drink, and I noticed she hesitated. "Could I have iced tea?" "Are you sure you wouldn't like wine? I promise I wouldn't take advantage of you. I trust you, Bill, but I usually stick to non-alcoholic drinks." "Okay," I replied to the waiter. "Tea for me, but with saccharin instead of sugar." She gave me a surprised look. "Oh my, you really have made some changes. You used to love sugar. I was worried about your health." My taste changed. A lot of things changed. Now I find it hard to drink tea with sugar. I actually like saccharin tea better. We ordered steaks. I chose a ribeye, and she picked a smaller filet mignon. After bringing our teas, they gave us a bowl of different flavored breadsticks and left us to enjoy our meal. We sat in silence, looking out into the dark for what felt like a long time. "I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Bill. I didn't come here just for that. I know it might seem like I wanted to get close to you, but I really did want to help Johnny and his girl." "I believe you, Jenny. There's been enough talk, especially since you became well-known, that I have a pretty good idea of what happened. You deserved better, especially after being a good husband for 20 years and handling all the challenges at UF. Talk is just talk, and most of the time it's not fully true. In some ways I've been a good husband, in others not so much." She reached out to touch my fingers gently. "I find it hard to see you as a bad husband, Bill. Did you drink, cheat, or hurt her? Do all the things bad husbands do? It depends on what you call a bad husband. I didn't drink or cheat or hurt her. I just left her alone at home and let her get close to a younger professor. I didn't try to keep her. I didn't fight for her when I had the chance, even though I might have failed. But I didn't even attempt it. It was not my best moment." "That was always your issue, Bill. You never believed you were good enough for her, and honestly, she was never good enough for you." "That's not true, Jenny. People on the outside can't always see what it's like inside. The only thing she really had, Bill, was a good look, but she didn't value loyalty, and everyone noticed. People were guessing how soon she would leave." She paused and shook her head. "I'm sorry, Bill. I know you were with her for a long time, and I know I'm not the best judge of partners." "Nothing to apologize for. I know what people thought. Her looks drew me in. I wanted her. If it had just been that, we probably would have had a short fling. I would have loved it and then moved on. But 3 months after she came into my life, we became very close. I got to know her. We studied together, watched movies, and shared pizza. We talked about books, politics, and social issues. Sometimes we argued, but we laughed too. She was the smartest and most determined person I ever knew. She didn't care what others thought. She told me about her past relationships and how she made her choices. She said, "I'm an adult. What I do with my life is my choice, not anyone else's." In my mind, I went back to that spring and summer, and she was loyal, kind, and brave. She didn't have to spend her time helping me catch up after my coma. She didn't have to be with me when she could have been with others. I asked her once why she stayed, and she said it was because I made her laugh. That wasn't what I expected, but I was happy to have that bond. And she was strong. My mother found out about us and was very upset about Debbie. She came to my room and saw us studying. We weren't doing anything wrong, but my mother looked really angry as she walked in and showed her disapproval. But Debbie held her ground. She calmly said it was my room and I deserved respect. If I had told her to go, she would have. But my mother's words didn't matter. Debbie respected our friendship and reminded me that I was an adult and could choose how to spend my time. My mother just stared at me, and finally I told her I wanted Debbie to stay. She was my friend. After that, she turned around and walked away. I didn't hear from her for a month until she called me on a Saturday to see if I needed anything. She never mentioned Debbie again, and I didn't bring her up either. I looked at the bright bridges that lit up the waterways, giving the city a nice, festive feel. She wasn't as unkind as some people said. While some students didn't like her, I realized that Debbie didn't seek attention. It always found her. Excuse me if you think I'm not on her list of supporters. I might be wrong about that. Maybe, How's your food?" After we finished eating, I walked with her to the railing by the river. Jacksonville is a lovely city. I love Columbus. It feels like home to me now. But this city is beautiful. She had been watching a cruise boat go down the river before she turned to look at me. I could still see the young woman she used to be, full of dreams. "I missed you, Bill." "I missed you too, Jenny. I knew you were okay when I got the ship of dreams. But I often wondered what happened to you. I just couldn't stay and watch you with her." She looked back at the river and we stood together in silence for a while. I walked her back to her room on the 4th floor. She used the key to open the door. "Could I offer you some coffee or tea?" She looked different from the serious government official who had come into my office earlier. She appeared softer and younger. When I didn't reply, she smiled and said, "You're not tied to Debbie anymore. That part is over. I don't believe you still think about going back to her. You're free and I'm single, but—" She paused. "I'm probably not attractive to you. I know what attraction looks like. Jenny, please don't say it's not me, it's you. That kind of answer frustrates people. Just be honest." "Okay, honesty." I looked into her eyes, knowing this would not be easy for either of us. "You were a dear friend, a good friend. But I have only felt friendship toward you, and I know you have felt more for me. Now, I'm divorced from Debbie and we're not getting back together. But my feelings for her remain. I saw what I expected in her eyes. I could go into that room with you and I would enjoy it. There's no doubt about that. But for you, it wouldn't be just about that. You would expect more and you deserve that. You're a good person, but I cannot give you more." I reached out and held her hands gently. She looked down and noticed the rings on my fingers. "The white gold ring on my right hand is my wedding ring, Debbie's ring. Some people have asked why I still wear it after the marriage ended. It's hard to explain. I just couldn't take it off, but now it's just a memory." I held her hand tightly as she looked at the ring on my wedding finger. It was silver and had a square top. Engraved on it was a fleur-de-lis design, and a small, shining diamond was in the center. "Before my divorce from Debbie was final, I met a French woman named Aline on the cruise ship Bon Chance. She is back in Paris now, working on her marriage, which I somehow made more complicated. I ran my thumb over the silver fleur-de-lis and said, 'This ring is a sister piece to a fleur-de-lis pin I gave her when we first met.' She later talked to me about how I was still wearing Debbie's ring and shared her feelings. She thought that if I wore her ring, I wouldn't forget her. And honestly, I haven't." I let go of her hand. "I'm not sure what will happen with Aline, but there's a chance her marriage might end and she could come back. If she walked in here tonight and said she was free and wanted to start fresh with me, I would think about it. You deserve more than being second choice. You deserve someone who truly wants you. I don't want to hurt you. I've had enough of that myself, and I could end up hurting you." She smiled softly, her eyes shining with understanding. "Like I said, Bill, you were always too good for Debbie. I hope this French woman treats you better than Debbie did if she returns. I need to go inside and get some sleep before heading back to Columbus. Thank you for everything tonight." She gave me a quick, warm smile before going into her room, leaving me with mixed emotions.